There's something profound that happens when night falls. The distractions fade, the noise quiets, and suddenly you're left alone with your thoughts. Sometimes that's peaceful. Other times it's unsettling. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, grappling with questions that seem bigger than life itself. Am I living the life I'm supposed to? Am I strong enough to face tomorrow? What does any of this even mean? It's easy to feel overwhelmed, even lost in these quiet moments. But what if these moments were actually opportunities? What if, instead of tossing and turning, you could discover insights that fundamentally alter how you perceive yourself, your life, and your struggles? Philosophy isn't just for textbooks or lecture halls, it's meant precisely for these quiet moments when we're alone and honest enough to truly listen. Existentialism teaches us that meaning isn't handed to us by the world, it's something we must courageously create for ourselves. It urges us to look boldly into the void, to accept uncertainty not as something terrifying, but as a blank canvas upon which to build our purpose. Stoicism whispers gently yet firmly in our ears that so much of our pain comes not from what happens to us, but from our judgments about it. We suffer most deeply not from reality, but from our resistance to it. By learning to let go of what we can't control and fully embracing what we can, Stoicism teaches us to remain steady amid life's inevitable storms, to care deeply about what matters and become indifferent to what does not. And then there's Viktor Frankl's Logotherapy, a philosophy born from unimaginable suffering and profound loss. Frankl believed that life isn't primarily a quest for pleasure or happiness, but rather a search for meaning, a deep purpose worth living and dying for. He taught us that no matter how dark the world becomes, we can find meaning in every experience, especially the difficult ones. In fact, our suffering can become our greatest strength, offering opportunities for extraordinary growth and profound understanding. Imagine for just a moment a life guided by these philosophies. Imagine what would change if you could finally stop worrying about what others think, find unshakable meaning in your existence, and embrace adversity as your greatest teacher. Imagine how restful sleep might become if your mind was no longer a battlefield, but a sanctuary, clear, purposeful, and calm. It's not about changing the external world, but about reshaping your inner landscape. It's about harnessing ancient and modern wisdom to quiet the internal chaos, silence the endless doubts, and transform the way you approach every moment of your life. Let these powerful truths gently dissolve your fears and doubts. Allow yourself to surrender, to let go of the burdens you've carried for so long. The path to genuine peace isn't about running from reality, but courageously facing it. Embrace that truth, that in accepting life exactly as it is, you reclaim your strength, rediscover your purpose, and finally set yourself free. Imagine a world where every external event, every opinion, and every unforeseen circumstance no longer has the power to disturb your peace of mind. Where the storms of life rage around you, yet your inner tranquility remains unshaken. This is not a fantasy, nor is it the privilege of the few. It is a practical philosophy that has stood the test of time, accessible to anyone willing to learn its principles. Have you ever found yourself agonizing over things beyond your grasp, allowing them to dictate your happiness and peace of mind? In our lives, cluttered with endless notifications, demands for our attention, and the relentless pressure of societal expectations, it's easy to feel like we're at the mercy of an unstoppable torrent of external forces. But what if I told you there exists a time-tested strategy that empowers you to cut through this noise, to distinguish clearly between what matters and what doesn't, effectively allowing you to focus on what truly enriches your life. This isn't just another self-help gimmick, it's Stoicism, an ancient philosophy designed for living a good life in a tumultuous world. Stoicism teaches us the art of selective indifference, focusing our energy only on what we can control and learning to accept, with equanimity, what we cannot. The beauty of Stoicism lies not in a set of esoteric teachings, but in its practical application to everyday life. It's about making peace with imperfection, embracing challenges as opportunities for growth, and realizing that true contentment comes from within. By watching this video, you're embarking on a journey that could radically transform your approach to life. You'll discover how to liberate yourself from the chains of external validation, break free from the cycle of unnecessary stress and anxiety, and cultivate a steadfast resilience against the vicissitudes of fate. The wisdom of Stoicism is more relevant than ever, offering a beacon of clarity in our fast-paced, complex world. But how, you might ask, can a philosophy that's thousands of years old be applicable to the challenges of modern life? How can ancient Stoic exercises and mindsets be integrated into our daily routines? And perhaps most importantly, can learning to care less about certain things really lead to greater happiness and fulfillment? These are the questions we will explore, providing you with concrete tools and strategies that you can apply to your own life. You might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true, or surely it's not that simple. And you're right. Like any worthwhile endeavor, mastering the Stoic way of life requires practice, reflection, and a willingness to challenge your preconceptions about what it means to live a good life. But the rewards, increased clarity, serenity, and resilience, are well within reach. As we delve into the core principles of Stoicism, from the wisdom of accepting what we cannot change to the pursuit of virtue as the highest good, you'll see how these ancient ideas can be brought to bear on the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. We'll examine real-life applications of Stoic practices, from managing negative emotions to making better decisions, and how adopting a Stoic mindset can lead to profound personal growth. Join me on a journey toward becoming a modern-day Stoic. Stoicism, a school of philosophy that has profoundly influenced the Western intellectual tradition, offers much more than mere historical curiosity. Originating in the bustling markets of ancient Greece, it was quickly embraced by some of the most forward-thinking minds of the time. However, it was in Rome that Stoicism found its most prominent voices: Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king whose meditations offer timeless wisdom; Seneca, the playwright and statesman who penned letters that still resonate with readers today; and Epictetus, the former slave whose teachings captured the essence of Stoic philosophy. These figures didn't just teach Stoicism, they lived it, demonstrating that this philosophy was not an abstract theory but a practical manual for resilience in the face of adversity. At the heart of Stoicism is the concept of control. Stoics teach us a simple yet profoundly liberating truth. The only things truly under our control are our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Everything else, whether it be the opinions of others, our social status, or even the unfolding of global events, lies beyond our direct influence. This recognition is not a call to passivity, but a rallying cry for focusing our energy and effort where it can genuinely make a difference, on our personal development and actions. By internalizing this lesson, we can avoid much of the frustration and disappointment that arise from trying to control the uncontrollable, paving the way for a life of greater tranquility and effectiveness. Central to the Stoic worldview is the pursuit of virtue. For Stoics, virtue is not just moral righteousness, but encompasses wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These are not merely abstract ideals, but practical qualities that guide our interactions with others and our approach to life's challenges. Virtue, in the Stoic sense, is the only true good, the sole source of genuine happiness. This perspective shifts our focus from external achievements and possessions to the quality of our character and our actions. In a world that often equates success with material wealth and social standing, Stoicism offers a radical alternative. True fulfillment comes from living in accordance with virtue. One of the most revolutionary Stoic principles is the idea that perception is reality. According to Stoicism, it is not external events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments and beliefs about them. This insight reveals the power of perspective. By changing how we view our circumstances, we can maintain our inner peace even in the face of adversity. This does not mean denying the reality of pain or difficulty, but recognizing that our response to these challenges is within our control. By cultivating a mindset that sees obstacles as opportunities for growth and learning, we can navigate life's ups and downs with a sense of tranquility and purpose. Stoicism also teaches us to embrace amor fati, or love of fate. This is the idea that we should accept and even cherish whatever life throws our way, viewing every experience as an opportunity for growth and learning. Rather than resisting or lamenting our fate, amor fati encourages us to lean into it, trusting that each challenge we face is an integral part of our journey. This acceptance does not mean passivity in the face of injustice or wrongdoing, but a deep-seated recognition that the path to personal and spiritual growth often lies through adversity. By adopting this stance, we can approach life with an open heart and a resilient spirit, ready to find meaning and value in whatever comes our way. Finally, Stoicism is rich with practical wisdom and exercises for daily life. Reflective journaling and contemplating the impermanence of things are two cornerstone practices within Stoicism, deeply interwoven with the philosophy's emphasis on self-awareness, personal growth, and mental resilience. Both exercises serve not just as theoretical concepts, but as practical tools that can significantly enhance our daily lives. Reflective journaling, as championed by Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations, is a powerful exercise for fostering self-reflection, clarity, and wisdom. Aurelius's writings, which were personal reflections intended for his own guidance and improvement, exemplify how journaling can serve as a means to navigate the complexities of life and the challenges of leadership. Reflective journaling involves taking time each day to write down your thoughts, experiences, and reflections. The focus is on analyzing your actions, reactions, and the decisions you made throughout the day. This practice encourages you to consider how well you've aligned with your values and Stoic principles, identifying both your strengths and areas where you could improve. This exercise builds a heightened self-awareness, allowing you to see patterns in your thoughts and behaviors that you might wish to change. It also serves as a moment of self-connection, reducing stress by processing your experiences through writing. Over time, it builds a repository of personal wisdom, offering insights into how you've navigated past challenges and how you've grown. To start, dedicate a few minutes each evening to journaling. Reflect on the day's events, focusing on questions like, how did I respond to challenges today? Did my actions reflect my core values? How could I have handled situations differently? This process not only solidifies the day's learning, but also prepares you for future challenges with greater wisdom and equanimity. The second Stoic practice is contemplating the impermanence of things, memento mori, or remembering that you will die, encourages a deep appreciation for the present moment and a mindful acceptance of life's transient nature. This involves regularly reflecting on the temporality of life, the inevitability of change, and the certainty of loss. Such contemplation is not intended to be morbid but rather to heighten our appreciation for the fleeting beauty of life and to focus our efforts on what truly matters. Contemplating impermanence helps to diminish the fear of death, a common source of existential anxiety. It fosters a greater appreciation for the present, encouraging us to live more fully and to not take our time, our loved ones, or our experiences for granted. It also prepares us mentally and emotionally for the inevitable changes and losses in life, reducing the impact of grief and shock when they do occur. Begin by setting aside time each week to quietly reflect on the impermanence of life. Consider the transient nature of your experiences, relationships, and material possessions. Ask yourself, am I using my time in a way that reflects my deepest values? Am I holding on to things, people, or ideas that I need to let go of? This practice can be both humbling and liberating, offering perspective on what is truly important and encouraging a more intentional approach to life. Through these principles and practices, Stoicism offers a roadmap for navigating the complexities of modern life with grace and wisdom. By focusing on what we can control, pursuing virtue, shifting our perceptions, embracing our fate, and engaging in reflective practices, we can cultivate a life of peace, purpose, and fulfillment. As we delve deeper into the teachings of Stoicism, we find not only historical insights but timeless wisdom that speaks directly to the challenges and opportunities we face today. Embarking on the journey towards Stoicism often begins in the midst of turmoil, at a point when life's relentless challenges seem insurmountable. My story is no exception. There was a time when the cacophony of external expectations and the sting of personal setbacks wove a heavy shroud around my existence. Each day felt like a battle, not against the world, but against my perceptions of what I believed I needed to be happy and successful. The external world demanded excellence, adherence to societal norms, and a relentless pursuit of goals that often felt alien to my core being. Personal setbacks, whether in relationships, career aspirations, or personal projects, seemed to underscore a haunting narrative of inadequacy. The weight of these combined pressures was not just heavy, it was suffocating, clouding my vision with a haze of doubt and despair. The discovery of Stoicism in this turbulent period was akin to a shipwrecked sailor spotting land. Initially, Stoicism presented itself not as a solution, but as a perspective, offering not an immediate escape, but a compass by which to navigate the stormy seas of life. The more I delved into the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, the more I realized that the map I had stumbled upon was charted not for external voyages but for an inward journey, a journey toward understanding, accepting, and finally embracing the inherent challenges of existence. Stoicism did not promise an easy life. Rather, it offered the tools to endure life's difficulties with grace and resilience. The transformation that followed was not sudden, nor was it easy. Embracing Stoic principles required a fundamental shift in perspective, a re-evaluation of what I considered within my control and what lay beyond it. The initial step, recognizing the difference between these spheres of influence, was liberating in its simplicity. I began to understand that my reactions to external events and opinions were mine to control, even if the events themselves were not. This realization brought with it a profound sense of relief and empowerment. I learned to meet setbacks, not with resignation but with reflection, asking not why this had happened to me, but how I could respond in a manner aligned with my values and character. This shift in perspective was transformative, reshaping not only my response to adversity, but my entire approach to life. Where once I saw obstacles, I now saw opportunities for growth and learning. The pursuit of external validation gave way to an inner journey toward virtue and self-improvement. Relationships became less about seeking approval and more about mutual growth and understanding. Career setbacks transformed from failures into lessons in resilience and adaptability. Even daily annoyances took on a new light, serving as reminders of the practice of patience and acceptance. The most profound transformation, however, was in my overall sense of well-being. The constant anxiety that had once clouded my days began to lift, replaced by a sense of calm assurance in my ability to face whatever life presented. This was not the naive optimism of believing that nothing bad would ever happen. Rather, it was the stoic confidence of knowing that I could handle adversity with grace. My happiness became less dependent on external circumstances and more rooted in my values, actions, and the quality of my character. This journey into Stoicism has been one of continual learning and growth. Stoic practices, such as reflective journaling and contemplation of impermanence, have become regular parts of my routine, serving as constant reminders of the principles I strive to live by. The wisdom of Stoicism, with its emphasis on virtue, control, and perspective, has not only provided a framework for navigating life's challenges, but has also offered a path to a more meaningful and fulfilled existence. The transformation wrought by embracing Stoic principles is profound but not unique to me. It is a testament to the enduring relevance and power of Stoicism to effect change in our lives. By focusing on what we can control, pursuing virtue, and reframing our perceptions of adversity, we can all find greater peace, resilience, and fulfillment. The art of not caring, as advocated by Stoicism, is perhaps one of the most misunderstood aspects of this ancient philosophy. To the uninitiated, it might evoke images of detachment or a lack of empathy. However, the Stoic concept of not caring is far more nuanced and indeed liberating. It's about being selective in our concerns, focusing our attention and efforts on what truly matters and is within our control. This distinction is crucial, not only for personal tranquility, but also for leading a life of purpose and meaning. Implementing Stoic practices into daily life does not lead us to disengage from the world or from our responsibilities. Rather, it empowers us to engage more fully, but with a clarity that prevents us from being overwhelmed by externalities that we cannot influence. In practical terms, the application of Stoic practices in daily life can take many forms, all aimed at reinforcing the distinction between what is and is not within our control. One foundational practice is the morning meditation or reflection on the day ahead, focusing not on what might happen to us, but on how we intend to respond to whatever the day brings. This practice roots us in the present and prepares us for the inevitable challenges, reminding us that while we may not control the events themselves, our responses are ours to command. Such reflections help us set intentions based on virtue and purpose, rather than reactive emotions or external pressures. Start each day with a moment of reflection, considering the challenges you might face and reminding yourself of what is within your control, your responses, attitudes, and actions. Imagine you have a critical meeting with your boss scheduled. Instead of stressing over whether they will recognize your hard work or criticize you, focus on preparing yourself mentally to accept constructive feedback positively and to present your achievements confidently. This shift in focus empowers you to control your preparation and demeanor, rather than fixating on outcomes beyond your control. Another practical Stoic exercise involves reframing our challenges. When faced with adversity, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we shift our perspective to, "What can this teach me?" Or, "How can I use this experience to grow?" This reframe not only diminishes the emotional charge of the situation, but also transforms obstacles into opportunities for development. This Stoic reframe encourages resilience, as it directs our focus away from lamenting our fate to finding value and lessons in our experiences. It's a powerful shift that moves us from victimhood to agency, empowering us to take constructive action even in the face of difficulty. If you're passed over for a promotion, instead of wallowing in disappointment or envy, ask yourself what skills you can develop or feedback you can seek out to improve your chances next time. This approach transforms a setback into a stepping stone for personal and professional growth. Moreover, Stoicism teaches us to practice gratitude, not in the superficial sense of simply counting our blessings, but in deeply appreciating the impermanence of life and the value of the present moment. By contemplating the transitory nature of our experiences and possessions, we cultivate a sense of gratitude for what we have here and now, reducing our anxiety about the future and our attachment to the material. This practice enhances our ability to live fully in the present, appreciating the simple joys in the people around us, thus enriching our daily lives with a sense of fulfillment and contentment. Regularly contemplate the impermanence of life and the value of the present moment to cultivate a deep appreciation for what you have, rather than pining for what you lack. During a quiet moment, perhaps while having your morning coffee, take the time to genuinely appreciate the simple comforts of your life, the roof over your head, the food on your table, or the presence of loved ones. This practice can turn routine moments into profound opportunities for happiness and connection. In addition to these reflective practices, Stoicism also encourages active engagement with the world through the practice of virtuous actions. Stoics believe that virtue is the only good, and that our character is the one thing we truly possess and can control. By choosing to act with kindness, integrity, patience, and courage, regardless of external circumstances, we not only improve our own lives but also contribute to the betterment of society. This aspect of Stoic practice emphasizes the interconnectedness of personal well-being and communal harmony, reinforcing the idea that by working on ourselves, we can make a positive impact on the world around us. Choose to act with kindness, integrity, patience, and courage every day, focusing on these virtues as guiding principles for your actions, regardless of how others may behave. When encountering someone rude or aggressive, whether in traffic or a work situation, choose to respond with patience and understanding rather than anger. Recognize that their behavior is outside your control, but you can control your reaction, choosing to act according to your principles of respect and empathy. Finally, the practice of evening reflection serves as a bookend to the day, providing an opportunity to review our actions, celebrate our successes in practicing Stoic principles, and identify areas for improvement. This practice of self-examination ensures that our commitment to Stoicism is not just theoretical but is actively integrated into the fabric of our daily lives, fostering continuous growth and self-improvement. End your day by reflecting on your actions, acknowledging your successes in living according to Stoic principles, and identifying areas for improvement. Before bed, review your day. Perhaps you lost your temper when your plans went awry, or maybe you found a moment of joy in helping a colleague. Acknowledge both these instances. Plan how you might maintain calm next time plans change, and remind yourself of the fulfillment found in acts of kindness. This reflection encourages personal growth and reinforces your commitment to Stoic living. Another example might be managing stress and anxiety in the workplace, especially during periods of intense pressure and tight deadlines, presents a scenario where Stoic principles can be particularly effective. Imagine you're part of a project team at work facing an imminent deadline. The stakes are high, and the workload seems insurmountable. The atmosphere is tense, and your anxiety levels are rising. This is a common situation many of us find ourselves in, feeling overwhelmed and stressed, which often leads to decreased productivity and a sense of helplessness. The real-world applications of Stoicism are as diverse as the challenges we face in our lives. From dealing with interpersonal conflicts to navigating career setbacks, from managing stress and anxiety to facing fears and uncertainties, Stoic practices offer a framework for responding to adversity with equanimity and integrity. By focusing on our responses, by embracing gratitude and the pursuit of virtue, and by engaging in reflective practices, we can retain our peace of mind and live with purpose, regardless of the external circumstances. This is the true art of not caring in the Stoic sense, a deliberate, thoughtful engagement with life that prioritizes inner tranquility and virtuous action over the relentless pursuit of external validations and outcomes beyond our control. The epiphany that emerges from embracing Stoicism is profound and transformative. It marks a significant turning point in one's approach to life, shifting the focus from an endless and often futile attempt to control external circumstances to cultivating strength, resilience, and freedom through the mastery of one's internal world. This Stoic revelation is not just an intellectual understanding, but a deeply felt realization that true freedom lies not in altering the landscape of our lives, but in changing how we perceive and interact with that landscape. For many, this realization comes as a liberating shock. We are conditioned from a young age to believe that success and happiness are predicated on external achievements and acquisitions, on the right job, the right relationships, the right possessions. Yet, this pursuit often leads to a sense of inadequacy and helplessness, as the happiness these achievements bring is fleeting, and their pursuit leaves us at the mercy of forces beyond our control. The Stoic Epiphany challenges this fundamental assumption, proposing instead that true contentment and freedom are achievable not by changing our external conditions, but by transforming our internal responses to those conditions. Adopting this Stoic mindset initiates a new way of living, characterized by a profound sense of autonomy and peace. This does not mean that life suddenly becomes devoid of challenges, or that the Stoic practitioner becomes indifferent to joy or sorrow. Rather, it signifies a shift in how one engages with life's inevitable ups and downs. By focusing on what is truly within our control, our thoughts, emotions, and actions, we gain the ability to maintain our composure and integrity regardless of external events. This shift does not make life easier in the conventional sense. Challenges remain, and effort is still required to navigate them. However, it does make us stronger, imbuing us with the resilience to face adversity without being undone by it. Moreover, this Stoic approach to life brings with it a profound sense of freedom. When we stop trying to control the uncontrollable and start working on what we can actually influence, we free ourselves from the tyranny of external expectations and the fear of failure. This freedom is not a passive state but an active one, empowering us to take decisive action aligned with our values and convictions. It enables us to live authentically, making choices not based on fear or desire for approval, but on a clear understanding of who we are and what we stand for. The practical implications of this Stoic epiphany are vast and varied, touching every aspect of our lives. In personal relationships, it encourages us to focus on our behavior and attitudes rather than trying to change others, leading to healthier and more harmonious interactions. In professional life, it fosters resilience and adaptability, qualities that are invaluable in the face of change and uncertainty. Even in the realm of personal development and self-care, the Stoic mindset promotes a balanced approach, recognizing the value of effort and discipline while also accepting our limitations with grace. This new way of living is not a destination, but a journey, one that requires continuous practice and reflection. The Stoic exercises discussed earlier, morning reflections, contemplation of control, reframing of challenges, and evening reviews, serve as daily reminders of this Stoic wisdom. Over time, these practices deepen our understanding and application of Stoic principles, reinforcing the epiphany that our true power lies not in dominion over the external world, but in mastery over our inner landscape. The Stoic revelation that true freedom comes from adjusting our internal attitudes rather than changing our external circumstances marks a pivotal moment in the Stoic journey. It challenges deeply ingrained beliefs about the sources of happiness and success, offering instead a path to genuine autonomy, resilience, and peace. Adopting this Stoic mindset transforms our engagement with life, empowering us to navigate its complexities with grace and equanimity. This transformation does not eliminate life's challenges, but it does change how we experience and respond to them, making us stronger, more resilient, and ultimately freer. The path to a Stoic life is not about suppressing your emotions or retreating from the world. It's about engaging with it more fully, with wisdom, virtue, and resilience. Start small, start today, and watch as the transformative power of Stoicism reshapes your world from the inside out. This is your moment, your life, your story. Make it a masterpiece. What if I told you that your suffering, your struggles, and even your deepest pain could be the key to an unshakable sense of purpose? That the very thing you try to avoid, pain, loss, uncertainty, might be the path to something greater? It might sound strange, even uncomfortable, but history has shown us that some of the most extraordinary individuals didn't find meaning in a life free of hardship. Instead, they found it because of hardship. This is what Viktor Frankl, a man who survived one of the darkest chapters in human history, discovered. And it's a discovery that could completely change the way you see your own life. Imagine being stripped of everything: your home, your family, your identity. Imagine being forced into a concentration camp, knowing that every single day could be your last. This was Viktor Frankl's reality. A Jewish psychiatrist living in Austria during World War II, Frankl was sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp in 1942. He lost his wife, his parents, and nearly everyone he loved. He had no idea if he would survive another day. Yet, even in those unimaginable conditions, he noticed something remarkable. Some prisoners, despite enduring the same suffering, held on to a sense of purpose. They were the ones who found reasons to keep going, even when everything seemed hopeless. They gave their last piece of bread to others. They encouraged those who were about to break. They carried themselves with a quiet dignity despite the horror surrounding them. And in many cases, they were the ones who lasted the longest. Frankl's experience in the camps became the foundation of his life's work. He wrote about it in his famous book, Man's Search for Meaning, which has been read by millions of people around the world. His core idea was simple yet profound. The primary motivation in human life is not pleasure, as Freud believed, nor power, as Adler believed, but meaning. When people have a strong reason to live, something that matters more than their suffering, they can endure almost anything. It's not the external circumstances that determine whether we survive and thrive. It's the internal sense of purpose that we carry within us. This brings us to the central question of this video. What makes life truly meaningful? If Frankl was right, then meaning is not something we passively receive, it's something we must actively find. It's not given to us by wealth, fame, or comfort. It's something deeper, something personal. Some people find meaning in their work, in creating something that benefits others. Some find it in their relationships, in the love they give and receive, and some find it in suffering itself, by transforming pain into wisdom, by refusing to let hardship break them, by using their struggles to help others. The problem is that many people today feel lost. Depression, anxiety, and existential dread are more common than ever. We live in an era where endless distractions keep us occupied but not fulfilled. Many people chase happiness, thinking that if they just get that promotion, that new car, that perfect relationship, they'll finally feel whole. But as soon as they get those things, they realize something is still missing. That's because happiness is a byproduct of meaning, not the other way around. If you don't know why you're doing something, no amount of success will satisfy you. We're going to explore Viktor Frankl's philosophy and how it can help you find something worth living for. Something that makes your suffering bearable. Something that gives you a reason to wake up in the morning, no matter how difficult life gets. We'll break down Frankl's key ideas, explore why so many people feel empty today, and most importantly, learn how you can apply these lessons in your own life. Because at the end of the day, life will ask you a question. What will your answer be? Viktor Frankl was not just another philosopher or psychologist writing about abstract theories from the comfort of an academic office. He lived through one of the darkest periods in human history and emerged with insights that continue to impact millions of lives today. Born in Vienna, Austria in 1905, Frankl was drawn to psychology and philosophy from a young age. He was particularly interested in understanding the human mind and what drives people's actions. As a student, he studied under two of the greatest psychological thinkers of the time, Sigmund Freud, who believed that human behavior was driven by the pursuit of pleasure, and Alfred Adler, who argued that the fundamental human drive was a desire for power and superiority. But Frankl wasn't fully convinced by either theory. He believed there was something deeper at play, something neither pleasure nor power could fully explain. This belief would be put to the ultimate test when he was forced into the horrors of a Nazi concentration camp. In 1942, Frankl, along with his wife and family, was arrested and sent to a concentration camp simply because they were Jewish. He lost everything overnight: his career, his freedom, his family. Eventually, he was transported to Auschwitz, the infamous death camp where millions perished. Stripped of his possessions, his dignity, and even his identity, reduced to a mere number tattooed on his arm, Frankl was thrown into a world of unimaginable cruelty. Hunger, disease, violence, and the constant presence of death were his daily reality. In that environment, many prisoners quickly lost hope. They gave up on life, let despair consume them, and often died shortly afterwards. But Frankl noticed something fascinating. Survival in the camps wasn't necessarily about physical strength or intelligence. It wasn't always the strongest or the healthiest who survived. It was the ones who had a reason to keep going. Frankl observed that prisoners who had a sense of meaning, something to live for, were far more likely to endure the suffering. Some found meaning in small acts of kindness, like sharing a piece of bread with another prisoner. Others held on to the hope of seeing their loved ones again. Frankl himself survived in part by imagining himself giving lectures about his experiences after the war, teaching people about the power of meaning. He would close his eyes and see himself in a warm lecture hall speaking to students about the lessons he had learned in Auschwitz. This mental image gave him a sense of purpose, a reason to endure. He later described this realization with a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche: "Those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow." In other words, when people have a deep reason to keep going, they can survive even the most brutal conditions. Frankl's time in the camps was more than just an experience of suffering. It was a test of his beliefs. He saw firsthand that meaning was not just an intellectual idea, it was a matter of life and death. He noticed that once a prisoner lost their sense of purpose, they would often deteriorate rapidly and die. But those who had a sense of meaning, even in the face of extreme suffering, were able to push forward. This realization became the foundation of his psychological theory. Meaning is not something that is given to us. It is something we must find. After surviving the Holocaust, Frankl dedicated the rest of his life to spreading this message. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning, which became one of the most influential books of the 20th century, and he developed a new school of psychology that centered around the pursuit of meaning: logotherapy. After the war, Frankl didn't just return to his old life. He came back with a mission: to teach people how to find meaning, even in suffering. He developed logotherapy, a revolutionary approach to psychology that differed from the dominant theories of his time. The name itself comes from the Greek word logos, which means meaning, and therapy, which means healing. Unlike other forms of psychotherapy that focused on past traumas or unconscious desires, logotherapy was about helping people discover the purpose that would guide their lives. Frankl argued that the primary human drive is not pleasure, as Freud suggested, nor the pursuit of power, as Adler believed, but rather the search for meaning. This idea was a radical departure from mainstream psychology. Freud's theory, known as the pleasure principle, suggested that people are primarily motivated by the desire to experience pleasure and avoid pain. While this might explain some human behaviors, Frankl believed it was insufficient. After all, many people endure hardship voluntarily for the sake of something greater. Athletes push through intense physical pain to achieve greatness. Parents sacrifice their comfort for their children. Soldiers risk their lives for a cause they believe in. If pleasure were the ultimate goal, why would anyone willingly suffer for something? Similarly, Adler's theory of power dynamics argued that humans are driven by the need to feel superior, to control their environment, and to exert influence over others. While power can certainly be a motivating force, it also fails to explain why people sometimes give up power for something greater than themselves. Why do some people devote their lives to service, to love, or to artistic creation rather than personal dominance? Frankl saw something deeper. He saw that people were willing to endure suffering, to sacrifice, and to push beyond their limits if they had a meaning that made it all worthwhile. So how do we find meaning? According to logotherapy, there are three primary ways to discover purpose in life: through work or creation. When people engage in meaningful work, whether it's art, science, teaching, or even building a business, they often feel a deep sense of purpose. Work becomes more than just a way to earn a living. It becomes an expression of who they are. Frankl believed that work should be about contribution, not just survival. If you feel lost, ask yourself, what can I create? How can I add value to the world? Even in the concentration camps, prisoners who found ways to be useful, helping others, fixing things, writing, often had a greater will to survive. Through love and relationships, love is one of the most powerful sources of meaning. Frankl himself survived the concentration camps by holding on to the memory of his wife, picturing her face, and imagining their reunion. Love gives us a reason to live beyond ourselves. It's not just about romantic relationships, deep friendships, family bonds, and even love for humanity as a whole can provide an unshakable sense of purpose. If you feel disconnected, ask yourself, who do I love? Who do I want to be there for? Who gives my life meaning? Through suffering and struggle, perhaps the most profound and difficult source of meaning comes from suffering itself. Frankl argued that when suffering is unavoidable, we must find a way to give it meaning. He saw this firsthand in Auschwitz. Some prisoners, despite unbearable conditions, found ways to turn their pain into something greater. They refused to let suffering break them. They used their hardship as a way to grow, to learn, to deepen their character. If you're going through a difficult time, ask yourself, how can I use this pain? How can I turn my struggle into strength? Frankl's message is clear. Meaning is not something you wait to receive, it is something you actively seek. You don't find meaning by chasing happiness, you don't find it by avoiding suffering, you find it by dedicating yourself to something greater than yourself. Whether it's through your work, your relationships, or even your struggles, meaning is always within reach. The question is, are you willing to look for it? In today's world, more people than ever are feeling lost, empty, and disconnected. Depression and anxiety are on the rise, and many people struggle to find a real sense of purpose in their lives. Despite having access to more technology, entertainment, and comfort than any generation before us, there is a growing feeling that something is missing. This feeling isn't just personal, it's widespread. You see it in the number of people turning to distractions like social media, binge-watching shows for hours, endlessly scrolling through their phones, or chasing temporary pleasures that never seem to satisfy them. Why is this happening? Why do so many people feel like they have no direction in life? The answer lies in something Viktor Frankl called the existential vacuum, a deep emptiness that comes from a loss of meaning. Frankl observed that many people, especially in modern society, experience a lack of real purpose in their lives. He argued that when humans lose a sense of meaning, they don't just remain neutral, they start to suffer. This suffering may not always appear as dramatic existential despair. Sometimes it shows up as a quiet sense of emptiness, boredom, or restlessness. People try to fill this void in different ways. Some turn to pleasure, seeking happiness in entertainment, sex, food, or substances. Others look for success and status, believing that wealth or fame will finally make them feel whole. Some people try to escape through constant distraction, keeping themselves busy with social media, video games, or endless work. But no matter how much they consume, buy, or achieve, the emptiness never fully disappears. That's because these things don't address the real problem, a lack of meaning. One of the biggest reasons this crisis has worsened in modern times is the rise of nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning. With the decline of traditional values, religion, and community structures, many people struggle to find a reason to exist beyond basic survival. In the past, people often found meaning through shared cultural or religious beliefs, family traditions, or a strong sense of duty to their communities. But in a world that increasingly tells us that life is just a random accident, that there is no deeper purpose beyond personal pleasure, many are left wondering, why should I even try? This kind of thinking leads to a dangerous cycle. Without meaning, people feel empty, and to escape that emptiness, they seek pleasure or distraction, which only makes them feel more disconnected in the long run. Frankl believed that this existential vacuum was one of the greatest psychological problems of the modern world. He noticed that when people lacked meaning, they often turned to destructive behaviors, addiction, aggression, depression, or extreme apathy. He saw it in patients who had everything society told them they should want: good jobs, financial stability, comfort, yet they felt miserable and unfulfilled. This is why, even today, we see celebrities, billionaires, and highly successful people struggling with mental health issues, substance abuse, or even suicidal thoughts. They have everything they thought would make them happy, yet they still feel lost. That's because material success alone cannot fill the void left by a lack of meaning. One of the biggest culprits in deepening this crisis is consumerism, the idea that happiness can be bought. We live in a world where people are constantly told that if they just buy the right products, wear the right brands, or own the latest technology, they will finally be happy. Advertisers and corporations fuel this mindset because it keeps people consuming. But the problem is that this kind of happiness is always temporary. A new phone, a luxury car, a fancy vacation, they might bring excitement for a little while, but the feeling never lasts. Eventually, people go back to feeling empty, so they chase the next thing and the cycle continues. This is why so many people are addicted to shopping, material possessions, and the endless pursuit of more. But no matter how much they acquire, it never fills the deeper need for purpose. Social media has also made the problem worse. Instead of looking inward to find meaning, many people now look outward, constantly comparing their lives to others. Platforms like Instagram create a false reality where it seems like everyone else is happy, successful, and living their best life. This fuels feelings of inadequacy and loneliness because people start to believe that if they aren't rich, famous, or constantly having fun, they must be failing at life. The irony is that even the people who seem to have perfect lives online often feel empty themselves. Many influencers and celebrities have spoken out about feeling miserable despite their success, proving that external validation doesn't create real fulfillment. The real issue is that modern society prioritizes comfort over meaning. People are taught to avoid discomfort at all costs, to take the easy path, to seek pleasure, to distract themselves whenever they feel uneasy. But Frankl argued that meaning often comes through struggle. A life free of difficulty might sound appealing, but in reality, it often leads to boredom, apathy, and a sense of worthlessness. Think about the most fulfilling moments in your life. Chances are, they didn't come from times of pure comfort. They probably came from overcoming a challenge, achieving something difficult, or pushing through adversity. Frankl saw this truth clearly in the concentration camps. Those who found a reason to endure, even in suffering, were the ones who survived. Yet today, we are conditioned to avoid hardship instead of embracing it as a path to growth and meaning. So what's the solution? How do we break free from this cycle of emptiness and find real meaning? The answer is to stop looking for happiness and start looking for purpose. Happiness is a fleeting emotion, it comes and goes. But meaning is deeper, it gives you something to live for even when life is hard. Instead of chasing pleasure, start asking yourself deeper questions. What do I care about? What am I willing to struggle for? What impact do I want to have on the world? True fulfillment comes from dedicating yourself to something greater than yourself. Whether it's creating something valuable, helping others, pursuing a passion, or growing as a person. Frankl's philosophy teaches us that we don't have to be victims of modern emptiness. We have the power to create meaning in our own lives. The problem is that most people don't take the time to reflect on what truly matters to them. They get caught in the distractions of the modern world, numbing themselves with entertainment, consumption, or temporary pleasures. But if you want to live a meaningful life, you have to consciously choose meaning over mindless distraction. You have to be willing to embrace struggle, to seek out purpose, and to dedicate yourself to something beyond yourself. At the end of the day, the choice is yours. You can continue chasing temporary pleasure, always feeling like something is missing, or you can start searching for real meaning through your work, your relationships, and even your struggles. The world will always offer distractions, but the deeper question remains: what are you truly living for? One of the most powerful ways to find meaning in life is through work and contribution. Work is not just about earning money or passing the time, it's about creating, building, and contributing to something larger than yourself. Many people feel lost or unfulfilled because their work doesn't align with their values. They wake up every morning feeling like they're just going through the motions, doing tasks that don't excite or inspire them. But when your work is meaningful, when it reflects who you are and what you care about, it gives your life direction. It provides a reason to wake up in the morning, a sense of purpose that keeps you moving forward even when life gets tough. Viktor Frankl believed that having a mission or a responsibility in life can give people the strength to endure even the worst hardships. Even in the horrors of Auschwitz, Frankl saw how work and contribution played a role in survival. Some prisoners found meaning in helping others, giving encouragement, sharing their last piece of bread, or even just offering a kind word. These acts of service and contribution gave them something to live for. Frankl himself took on the role of a doctor in the camps, using his knowledge of psychology to help fellow prisoners cope with the trauma they were experiencing. He had nothing, not even freedom, but he still found a way to contribute. He later wrote that those who had a sense of responsibility towards something, whether it was their family, their work, or a personal mission, were more likely to survive. This proves a fundamental truth. When you feel that your work matters, you are willing to endure difficulties to see it through. Many people throughout history have turned their suffering into purpose through meaningful work. Holocaust survivors who lost everything went on to build new lives, not just for themselves but for others. The same pattern can be seen in ex-prisoners who, after experiencing years of hardship, went on to help rehabilitate others, guiding young people away from crime. Trauma victims, too, have used their experiences to become therapists, social workers, and activists, ensuring that no one else has to suffer alone. The lesson here is clear. Your work can be a source of meaning if it aligns with something deeper than just survival or personal gain. But how do you find meaningful work? The key is to align your work with your values. Ask yourself, what do I care about? What kind of impact do I want to have? If your current job doesn't give you that sense of fulfillment, look for ways to bring meaning into it. Sometimes it's not about the job itself, but about how you do it. A teacher, for example, can see their work as just a way to pay the bills, or they can see it as an opportunity to shape the next generation. A janitor in a hospital might think they're just cleaning floors, or they might recognize that their work helps create a safe, sanitary space for patients to heal. The way you frame your work matters just as much as the work itself. If you're in a job that feels meaningless, consider creating something bigger than yourself. This could mean starting a side project that reflects your passion, volunteering, or even shifting careers if necessary. Many people feel stuck because they believe work is just about survival, but work should be about expression, service, and impact. Maybe you're passionate about art. How can you use that to create something meaningful? Maybe you love problem solving. How can you apply that in a way that helps others? Even if you're working in a job that doesn't seem meaningful right now, you can bring purpose into it by focusing on how your work affects others, learning new skills, and finding ways to grow. Frankl taught that life is not about avoiding suffering, but about finding a reason to endure it. This applies to work as well. Even the most fulfilling careers come with struggles, but if you see those struggles as part of something greater, they become meaningful instead of draining. If you don't know where to start, begin by reflecting on what excites you, what problems in the world make you feel something, and how your skills can contribute to a cause. Maybe it's mentoring younger people, maybe it's working in a creative field, maybe it's starting your own business with a mission that aligns with your values. Whatever it is, make sure it's something that feels bigger than just you. At the end of the day, you don't just work to live, you live to contribute. Whether that contribution is in your career, your side projects, or your personal relationships, finding work that matters is one of the most powerful ways to build a meaningful life. If you feel lost or unfulfilled, ask yourself, Am I just working for a paycheck, or am I working for a purpose? Because the answer to that question could change everything. One of the deepest sources of meaning in life comes from love and relationships. Viktor Frankl believed that love is the highest human experience, even greater than work, success, or personal achievements. He saw love as something that gives life purpose, something that makes suffering bearable, and turns ordinary moments into something profound. Many people search for meaning in their careers, material success, or personal accomplishments, but without deep, meaningful relationships, life often feels empty. Love, whether it's romantic love, the love of family, or the bond of true friendship, connects us to something beyond ourselves. It reminds us that we are not alone and that our existence matters to others. Frankl's belief in the power of love was not just an abstract idea, it was something he experienced firsthand in Auschwitz. While he was imprisoned, suffering from starvation, exhaustion, and the constant fear of death, the thought of his wife kept him alive. He didn't know whether she was dead or alive, but in his mind, she was with him. He would picture her face, imagine their conversations, and hold on to the memory of the love they shared. Even though he had nothing, no possessions, no freedom, no certainty about the future, the thought of his wife gave him the strength to endure. This was one of his most powerful realizations. Even in the most hopeless situations, love can sustain us. It doesn't have to be physical or even reciprocated at that moment. Just knowing that love exists, that we have given and received love in our lives, can give us the courage to keep going. But love is not just about romance. Many people think that love is only about finding a soulmate, but Frankl saw love as something much bigger. Love can be found in deep friendships, in family bonds, and in acts of kindness toward others. Some of the most meaningful relationships in life are not based on romance but on connection, loyalty, and shared experiences. A true friend who stands by you in hard times, a parent who sacrifices for their child, a mentor who guides you, these are all forms of love that give life meaning. If you think about the moments in your life that have meant the most, chances are they involve the people you love. However, not all forms of love lead to meaning. There is a big difference between real love and attachment or dependency. Real love is about giving, about genuinely caring for another person's well-being without expecting something in return. It's about seeing someone for who they truly are and appreciating them, flaws and all. Dependency, on the other hand, is about needing someone to fill an emptiness inside you. It's about clinging to someone because you're afraid of being alone or because you believe they are the key to your happiness. Many relationships fail because they are based on dependency rather than real love. When we expect another person to complete us or fix our emotional wounds, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Love is not about losing yourself in someone else. It's about becoming a better version of yourself while sharing your life with another person. So how do you cultivate deep, meaningful relationships? The first step is to become someone worth loving. Many people focus on finding the right person, but the truth is, a strong relationship starts with being the right person. This means developing your character, working on your emotional health, and becoming someone who brings value to others. If you want meaningful friendships, ask yourself, am I a good friend? Do I listen, support, and encourage others? If you want a deep romantic relationship, ask, am I emotionally mature? Do I bring positivity and strength into a relationship? Or do I expect the other person to make me happy? True love is built on mutual respect, trust, and personal growth. Another key to meaningful relationships is being present. In today's world, many relationships suffer because people are too distracted. Social media, work stress, and personal insecurities often get in the way of truly being with the people we care about. How often do we sit with friends or family but spend most of the time looking at our phones? How many relationships weaken because one or both people stop making an effort to connect? Love isn't just about words, it's about presence, about truly seeing and understanding another person. One of the most powerful things you can do for someone you love is to give them your full attention, to make them feel heard, valued, and appreciated. Building strong relationships also requires vulnerability. Many people struggle with deep connections because they are afraid to open up. They fear rejection, betrayal, or being seen as weak. But true intimacy, whether in friendships, family, or romance, comes from allowing yourself to be seen. This means sharing your thoughts, fears, and dreams with those you trust. It means being honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Frankl believed that love was one of the most powerful forces in human existence because it allowed people to transcend themselves. When we truly love someone, we put their well-being above our own, we make sacrifices, and we commit to something greater than just our individual needs. Finally, meaningful relationships require forgiveness and patience. No relationship is perfect. There will always be misunderstandings, conflicts, and moments of frustration. But love is not about perfection, it's about commitment and growth. Many relationships fail because people expect flawless compatibility instead of seeing challenges as opportunities to grow together. Instead of walking away at the first sign of conflict, strong relationships are built by learning to work through differences, communicate honestly, and forgive each other's imperfections. Love is a choice that we make every day, to show up, to care, to support, and to stay committed even when things aren't easy. At the end of the day, love is what makes life worth living. It's what gives meaning to our struggles and joy to our successes. When we are loved, we feel seen, understood, and valued. When we love others, we step outside of our own ego and contribute something meaningful to another person's life. Frankl believed that the greatest fulfillment comes from giving ourselves to something greater, and there is no greater purpose than love. Whether it's in a romantic relationship, a deep friendship, or the love we give to the world through kindness and service, love is what connects us to something beyond ourselves. So ask yourself, who do I truly love, and how can I love better? Because at the end of life, when everything else fades, the only thing that truly matters is the love we gave and the love we received. One of Viktor Frankl's most profound insights was that suffering by itself is not the enemy. It is a part of life, something that no one can fully escape. We all experience loss, failure, disappointment, and pain. Some suffer in obvious ways through illness, heartbreak, or injustice. Others suffer in quieter ways through loneliness, self-doubt, or the feeling that their life has no direction. But Frankl believed that suffering, while painful, could be transformed into something meaningful. He wrote, "Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning." In other words, when we give our pain a purpose, it stops being something that destroys us and instead becomes something that strengthens us. The idea that suffering is inevitable is not unique to Frankl. It has been a central theme in philosophy for thousands of years. The Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius also taught that pain and hardship are not what ruin people's lives, our reaction to them is. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who faced constant war, betrayal, and personal tragedy, wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is a key truth. We cannot always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. If suffering is an unavoidable part of life, then our only real choice is whether we let it break us or use it to grow stronger. Frankl learned this firsthand in the Nazi concentration camps. Every day, he saw prisoners who were beaten, starved, and dehumanized. He also saw how different people reacted to their suffering. Some gave up, losing all hope. They refused to eat, stopped talking, and simply lay down, waiting to die. Others responded with bitterness and anger, turning against their fellow prisoners, stealing food, or doing whatever it took to survive at the cost of others. But then, there were those who chose something different. These were the people who, despite their suffering, still found ways to be kind. They shared their last piece of bread. They helped others who were weaker. They encouraged their fellow prisoners, telling them to hold on just a little longer. These people were suffering just as much as everyone else, but they had found something greater than their pain, a reason to keep going. This is what Frankl meant when he said, "We have two choices in suffering. The first choice is to become bitter, resentful, and nihilistic. This is the path many people take when life becomes hard. They blame the world, they curse their fate, and they become filled with anger. They might turn to self-destructive behaviors, drinking, drugs, isolating themselves because they believe their suffering has no meaning. Some people become deeply cynical, convinced that life is just random suffering with no purpose. This path is understandable, but it leads nowhere. It turns pain into an endless cycle of negativity, making life feel even worse. The second choice is to use suffering as fuel to find a higher purpose. This doesn't mean pretending that pain isn't real or forcing yourself to be positive all the time. It means looking at suffering and asking, what can this teach me? How can I grow from this? How can I use this pain to help others? Some of the greatest figures in history turned their suffering into something powerful. Helen Keller, who was blind and deaf, didn't let her suffering destroy her. She used it to inspire millions. Even Frankl himself, after surviving Auschwitz, could have spent his life full of anger and hatred. Instead, he devoted his life to teaching others how to find meaning, helping thousands of people in the process. But how do we actually transform pain into purpose? One of the best ways is through reflection and reframing. When you experience suffering, take time to ask yourself deeper questions. What is this pain teaching me? How can I use this experience to become wiser, stronger, or more compassionate? If you've gone through heartbreak, maybe it's an opportunity to learn about yourself, to grow into someone who is ready for a better relationship. If you failed at something, maybe it's teaching you resilience, showing you how to get back up and try again. Pain is a teacher, but only if we are willing to listen. Another exercise is writing about your suffering. Frankl often encouraged his patients to put their experiences into words. Writing forces you to organize your thoughts, to make sense of what happened, and to see patterns you might not notice otherwise. Studies have shown that people who journal about their struggles tend to process their emotions more effectively and recover from trauma faster. If you're going through a difficult time, try writing about it, not just what happened, but what you can learn from it. This simple practice can help turn chaos into clarity. A third way to turn suffering into strength is to use it to help others. Many people who have suffered deeply find meaning in guiding those who are going through similar pain. If you've battled depression, you can help others who are struggling. If you've lost a loved one, you can support those who are grieving. If you've experienced hardship, you can be an example of resilience. Helping others doesn't just make the world better, it also gives your own suffering a purpose. Frankl believed that one of the greatest ways to find meaning is through service. By taking your pain and using it to ease the suffering of others, you create something positive out of something negative. Lastly, practice acceptance and gratitude. This doesn't mean pretending that suffering is enjoyable. It means accepting that hardship is a natural part of life and choosing to focus on what remains. Even in Auschwitz, Frankl found moments of beauty, watching the sunrise, sharing a quiet conversation, hearing someone express hope. No matter how much we suffer, there is always something left to be grateful for. Maybe it's the people who stand by us. Maybe it's the lessons we've learned. Maybe it's simply the fact that we are still here, still capable of growing, still able to find meaning. At the end of the day, suffering is part of being human, but what defines us is not whether we suffer, it's what we do with it. You can choose to let your pain make you bitter, or you can choose to let it make you stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Frankl showed us that even in the worst imaginable circumstances, people can still find purpose, and if meaning can be found in a concentration camp, it can certainly be found in our everyday struggles. So the next time life feels unbearable, ask yourself, how can I use this? How can I grow from this? Because in the end, it's not suffering that breaks us, it's the absence of meaning. And meaning is something that we have the power to create. One of the most powerful lessons Viktor Frankl teaches us is that true strength comes from within. The world is unpredictable and suffering is inevitable, but those who develop an unbreakable spirit can endure life's challenges with courage and purpose. Frankl introduced a concept called tragic optimism, the ability to maintain hope despite suffering. It's not about ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that even in the worst situations, there is always a possibility for growth, for meaning, and for transformation. This kind of optimism is not based on blind positivity, but on the belief that life always holds the potential for purpose, no matter how difficult things become. We can see examples of tragic optimism in the lives of people who have survived extreme adversity. Holocaust survivors like Frankl himself, war veterans who returned home after witnessing unimaginable horrors, individuals who lost their ability to walk but still found ways to live fulfilling lives. All of them had a choice to let their suffering define them or to rise above it and find meaning. Some of the most resilient people in history were those who, instead of focusing on what they had lost, focused on what they could still do. They channeled their pain into something greater, refusing to be broken by their circumstances. This is the essence of an unbreakable spirit, not a life free from suffering, but a life in which suffering is used as fuel for growth. How do we build this kind of mental resilience? The first step is to change how we see struggle. Many people see hardships as a sign that something is wrong, that life is unfair, or that they are being punished. But what if suffering is not an obstacle, but a teacher? If we start to see challenges as opportunities for strength, then every difficulty becomes a chance to grow. Frankl believed that those who embraced their suffering, who actively searched for meaning in it, were the ones who survived and thrived. When life gets hard, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What can I learn from this? How can I become stronger because of this?" This shift in mindset is the foundation of resilience. Another key to developing an unbreakable spirit is having something greater than yourself to hold on to. This could be faith, philosophy, or a personal mission statement that guides you. Many people who have endured the worst hardships say that their belief in something greater helped them survive. For some, it was religious faith. For others, it was a philosophy like Stoicism or Buddhism that helped them accept suffering with grace. Even those who don't follow a specific religion can benefit from creating their own personal mission, a statement that defines their purpose and keeps them focused during hard times. If you don't have one, try writing down what matters most to you, what values you want to live by, and what kind of person you want to be, even when life gets hard. There are also daily practices that reinforce mental strength and meaning. One of the most powerful is gratitude. Frankl found moments of beauty even in the concentration camps, watching a sunrise, hearing someone share a kind word, remembering the face of a loved one. No matter how much suffering exists, there is always something to be grateful for. Start each day by identifying 3 things you appreciate in your life, even if they are small. Another practice is visualization, picturing yourself overcoming challenges, imagining yourself strong and capable. Frankl survived Auschwitz by visualizing himself giving lectures about what he had learned. What can you visualize that would give you strength? Finally, acts of service, helping others, even in small ways, can make us feel connected to something beyond our own pain. When we lift others up, we lift ourselves up as well. At some point in life, we must ask ourselves, what would I die for? This is not just a dramatic question, it is perhaps the most important question of all. It forces us to confront what truly matters, to strip away the superficial concerns of daily life, and to identify our deepest values. Most people spend their lives avoiding death, chasing comfort, and seeking safety. But true meaning is not found in safety. It is found in devotion to something greater than ourselves. Frankl believed in self-transcendence, the idea that the greatest fulfillment comes from living beyond oneself. When people dedicate their lives to something greater than their personal happiness, they become truly alive. History is filled with examples of individuals who found meaning not in seeking an easy life, but in sacrifice and purpose. Mahatma Gandhi dedicated his life to nonviolent resistance. Martin Luther King Jr. was willing to risk everything for civil rights. These people didn't just ask, "What makes me happy?" They asked, "What is worth suffering for?" And it's not just real historical figures. This theme runs through the greatest stories and fictional characters as well. Think of characters like Frodo Baggins in The Lord of the Rings. He didn't want to carry the burden of the One Ring, but he did because it was the right thing to do. Batman could have lived an easy life as a billionaire, but he chose to dedicate himself to fighting injustice. Even in ancient myths, heroes don't seek comfort, they seek purpose, and often that purpose requires sacrifice. These stories resonate with us because, deep down, we know that the greatest lives are not the easiest ones, but the most meaningful ones. So why is comfort and safety the enemy of deep meaning? Because when people prioritize comfort above all else, they often lose their sense of purpose. A life spent chasing security, avoiding risk, and staying in a safe little bubble might seem appealing, but it rarely leads to fulfillment. Many people who achieve financial success and an easy lifestyle still feel empty because they have nothing truly worth struggling for. Meaning requires challenge. It requires devotion to something beyond the self. Frankl saw this in Auschwitz. Those who had a reason to live, something to hold on to, were the ones who survived. The same applies to us today. The connection between sacrifice, devotion, and purpose is clear. People who live meaningful lives are willing to suffer for what they believe in. Parents sacrifice for their children. Artists and creators dedicate years to their work, often without recognition. Athletes push their bodies to the limit not just for glory, but because they believe in something greater, the pursuit of excellence. Soldiers risk their lives not because they love war, but because they believe in protecting others. Sacrifice is not a sign of weakness. It is the highest form of commitment. If you want to live a life of meaning, ask yourself, what am I willing to suffer for? What am I willing to dedicate my life to, even if it's hard? Because the answer to that question is the key to finding your purpose. It is not about what makes you comfortable or what brings you pleasure in the short term. It is about what lights a fire in your soul, what makes you feel truly alive. At the end of life, no one looks back and feels proud of how comfortable they were. They feel proud of the things they devoted themselves to, the people they loved, the causes they fought for, the challenges they overcame. If you don't know what you would die for, then start by asking, what do I want to live for? Because when you find something worth living for, you'll have something worth fighting for. We've covered a lot in this video, diving deep into Viktor Frankl's philosophy and the incredible power of meaning. Now the real question is, how do we take these ideas and apply them to our lives? Knowledge alone isn't enough. Understanding Frankl's teachings means little if we don't act on them. The truth is, most people drift through life without ever confronting these ideas, without ever asking themselves the hard questions. They wake up, go to work, distract themselves, and repeat the cycle day after day, all while feeling an underlying sense of emptiness. But Frankl's work shows us that life does not have to be this way. Meaning is not something that happens to us, it is something we must actively search for, something we must create. Let's briefly recap the most important lessons we've discussed. First, we explored why so many people feel lost today. The modern world is filled with distractions, but no amount of entertainment, consumerism, or social media can replace the deep need for purpose. People chase happiness, thinking it will give them fulfillment, but happiness is not something you can chase directly, it is a byproduct of meaning. Without meaning, people fall into despair, addiction, and anxiety. Frankl called this the existential vacuum, and he believed that overcoming it required finding something truly worth living for. Then, we looked at the role of work and contribution in creating a meaningful life. Work is not just about making money, it is about creating something valuable, about giving something to the world. Even in Auschwitz, Frankl saw that those who found ways to contribute, whether by helping others, fixing things, or even just offering a kind word, were the ones who endured. The lesson here is simple. If you want to feel fulfilled, find a way to contribute. Give something to the world, and the world will give something back to you. Next, we explored love and relationships as sources of meaning. Frankl believed that love was the highest human experience, and for good reason. The people we love, whether friends, family, or romantic partners, give our lives depth and purpose. But love is not just about attachment. It is about seeing someone for who they truly are and wanting the best for them, even beyond our own needs. Love is not about filling a void. It is about connection, sacrifice, and shared meaning. We then talked about suffering and how to turn pain into strength. Frankl's famous quote, "Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning," reminds us that pain, when given a purpose, can transform us. Everyone suffers at some point, but not everyone uses their suffering to grow. We always have two choices: become bitter and resentful, or use our struggles to build something greater. The people who survive life's hardest moments are those who refuse to see suffering as meaningless. They turn their pain into fuel, into wisdom, into something that can help others. Then we discussed how to cultivate an unbreakable spirit. Frankl introduced the idea of tragic optimism, the ability to maintain hope despite suffering. This is not naive positivity, but a conscious choice to believe that life always has meaning, even in the worst moments. Mental resilience is built not by avoiding pain, but by facing it head-on, learning from it, and growing stronger because of it. The most resilient people are not the ones who have had an easy life. They are the ones who have suffered deeply, but refuse to let their suffering define them. And finally, we asked the most important question of all: what would you die for? Frankl believed that meaning is found in self-transcendence, in living for something beyond ourselves. He saw that comfort and safety are not what make life fulfilling. Sacrifice and devotion to a cause are. Those who live only for themselves often feel empty, while those who dedicate themselves to something greater experience deep fulfillment. Whether it's a person, a mission, or a purpose, finding something you are willing to fight for, even suffer for, gives life its deepest meaning. Now that we understand these key lessons, the next step is putting them into action. Here is a simple 3-step plan to help you begin your own search for meaning. 1. Identify your deepest values and what resonates with you. Before you can live a meaningful life, you need to know what truly matters to you. Most people never take the time to ask themselves, what do I care about? What excites me? What kind of impact do I want to have? Start by making a list of the things that resonate deeply with you, whether it's creativity, helping others, learning, adventure, justice, or something else. Your values are like a compass, guiding you toward a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. A good exercise is to think about the moments when you have felt most alive. What were you doing? Who were you with? What kind of challenges were you facing? These moments often reveal what truly matters to you. If you're not sure where to start, ask yourself, if I had only 5 years left to live, what would I spend my time doing? Your answers will give you clues about where your meaning lies. 2. Align your daily actions with something beyond yourself. Once you know your values, the next step is living according to them. It's not enough to think about meaning, you have to act on it. This means making choices every day that reflect what you care about. If you value connection, make time for the people you love. If you value creativity, work on something that expresses who you are. If you value growth, challenge yourself to learn new things. Most importantly, find a way to contribute to something bigger than yourself. This doesn't mean you have to change the world overnight. Start small, help someone in need, mentor a younger person, create something that inspires others. Frankl believed that self-transcendence, the ability to go beyond yourself and serve something greater, was the key to fulfillment. The more you give, the more meaning you will find. 3. Accept suffering as part of the journey, not something to avoid. Finally, embrace the truth that suffering is inevitable, but it does not have to be meaningless. Life will always have hardships, but if you can see them as opportunities for growth rather than just obstacles, you will develop the resilience to keep going. Instead of avoiding discomfort, lean into it. When things get difficult, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can I use this experience to become wiser, stronger, and more compassionate? One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that a meaningful life is an easy life. But the most meaningful lives are often the hardest ones. They are filled with challenges, sacrifices, and moments of doubt. But they are also filled with depth, purpose, and a sense of fulfillment that cannot be bought or faked. At the core of Frankl's philosophy is one final powerful idea. Life is constantly asking you a question. It's not about what you want from life, it's about what life expects from you. Every challenge you face, every hardship you endure, is life asking, what will you do with this? Will you let suffering break you, or will you use it to build something greater? Will you live only for yourself, or will you dedicate yourself to something beyond you? Will you spend your time chasing comfort, or will you seek out real, lasting purpose? These are the questions that define a meaningful life. And in the end, you are the only one who can answer them. So take these ideas, reflect on them, and most importantly, act on them. Because meaning is not something you wait for, it's something you create. What if I told you that your deepest pain could be the source of your greatest strength? Take a moment to consider how radically different your life might be if you stopped treating suffering as your enemy and started seeing it as your greatest ally. We live in a culture that constantly urges us to avoid hardship, to numb ourselves at the first hint of discomfort, and to seek out every possible convenience that technology and modern life can offer. But what if that approach is actually keeping you from unlocking your full potential? That's precisely what the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche believed. He argued that suffering isn't something to flee from, but rather a force we can harness, a catalyst that can spur us to tremendous heights of creativity, resilience, and personal excellence. Nietzsche's perspective on suffering is especially relevant today, when we're inundated with quick fixes and simple escapes from anything that causes us pain. His message stands in stark contrast to the constant pursuit of comfort. Pain is not a sign of weakness, it's the birthplace of strength. When you begin to see challenges and hardships as teachers rather than obstacles, you discover that moments of despair, frustration, or anguish can be the very fuel that drives you to become exceptional. In other words, it's often the times you feel most broken that lead to your most profound breakthroughs, if you let them. Over the course of this video, you'll learn why he believes so firmly in the transformative power of suffering. You'll gain a deeper understanding of how he saw hardship as a gateway to growth rather than a roadblock. By delving into his core concepts like the Übermensch, Amor Fati, and the will to power, you'll see how adversity can be strategically embraced to elevate your life to unprecedented levels of meaning and impact. Instead of dreading those moments of pain and uncertainty, you'll discover how to reframe them, cultivate an unbreakable spirit, and channel your struggles into something extraordinarily productive. If you watch until the end, you'll walk away with practical insights on how to reinterpret your own suffering and use it as a springboard for self-discovery. You'll learn to reject the mindset that views pain solely as a burden and instead adopt the belief that struggle is an integral part of becoming the strongest, most authentic version of yourself. You'll hear why Nietzsche was convinced that avoiding hardship at all costs is one of the biggest mistakes we can make, and how it leads to a half-lived life that never truly taps into the depths of our capabilities. More importantly, you'll find out how you can incorporate Nietzsche's philosophies into your everyday life, shifting from a default response of resistance and dread toward a more proactive stance that sees problems and setbacks as vital elements of growth. Whether you're facing an uphill battle at work, wrestling with a personal crisis, or searching for a deeper sense of purpose, Nietzsche's bold challenge to embrace suffering could be the very key that propels you to new heights. His ideas may not always be easy to swallow. After all, they force us to confront discomfort head-on, but they hold the promise of a more dynamic, empowered, and ultimately fulfilling existence. So, if you're ready to discover how your hardest moments can become the stepping stones to greatness, stay with me. Nietzsche's guide to using suffering as a powerful tool for self-transformation might just be the spark you need to start viewing pain in an entirely new light, and to rise above your limitations in ways you never thought possible. Now that we've established the idea that suffering can be a pathway to strength rather than a roadblock, let's dig into Nietzsche's perspective on why hardship is so central to the human experience. He famously declared, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." It's a statement that can sound grim at first. After all, nobody enjoys the idea of endless struggle. But what he is really saying is that living, truly living, means you'll inevitably run into pain, obstacles, and disappointment. Those are natural elements of being alive. You can't escape them, no matter how hard you try. Once you accept that suffering is woven into the very fabric of existence, you begin to see that the difference between merely enduring life and thriving in it often comes down to how you interpret and respond to that suffering. According to Nietzsche, to survive is not just about staying alive physically, It's about discovering or creating a meaning that transforms your suffering into a force that propels you forward. It's about refusing to crumble under the weight of your problems and instead forging purpose out of them. By doing so, you're not just surviving, you're evolving, growing, and becoming stronger in ways you never would have otherwise. For Nietzsche, suffering was more than just a fact of life. It was an essential ingredient for personal growth. He believed that everything worth having, whether it's profound insight, unshakable confidence, or original creativity, comes at a cost. Think of it this way. When you go to the gym, you lift weights that challenge your muscles, causing them microscopic tears. While it hurts in the moment, that discomfort is exactly what triggers your body to rebuild stronger muscle fibers. He saw the same principle at work in the mind and spirit. Enduring heartbreak, disappointment, and setbacks pushes you to confront the vulnerable parts of yourself. It peels back layers of complacency and forces you to step up, adapt, and refine your approach. In his view, a life free of all difficulty might seem appealing at first glance, but it's a life that would rob you of real transformation. Without challenges, we risk remaining stagnant, never discovering the deeper resources of courage, creativity, and resolve that lie dormant within us. And it's not just about pain for its own sake. Nietzsche wasn't saying, go out and get hurt for fun. Rather, he was pointing out that pain is an unavoidable aspect of existence. And if you try to dodge it completely, you also dodge the lessons it has to teach you. Now let's compare this view with how most people approach pain and suffering today. Many of us live in a world that prizes quick fixes, instant gratification, and constant convenience. Whether it's food delivery at the push of a button, streaming entire TV series without leaving the couch, or leaning on social media for temporary distraction, modern technology makes it incredibly easy to sidestep anything uncomfortable. As a result, we've grown so used to seeking comfort that we often interpret any kind of hardship as a failure or a flaw. If a relationship becomes tough, we might think, this should be easier, and give up. If a job becomes challenging, we might assume, I'm not cut out for this, and look for something simpler. Our cultural messaging often encourages us to avoid the grind, to keep ourselves endlessly entertained, and to reach for a convenient escape whenever life gets tough. Nietzsche's philosophy directly confronts this mindset. He would argue that our collective obsession with avoiding adversity actually undermines our capacity to become remarkable individuals. When we dodge every obstacle or sanitize every hint of discomfort, we miss the growth that comes from wrestling with those very challenges. We lose opportunities to develop resilience, empathy, perseverance, and creative problem-solving skills. In other words, the modern pursuit of endless comfort might spare us a little pain in the short term, but it can also rob us of real growth in the long run. His take on suffering can serve as a powerful reminder that hardship isn't always a sign something has gone wrong. Instead, it can be a natural and even necessary part of a meaningful life. If you think back to any of your own struggles, maybe a big test at school, a conflict with a friend, or a period of uncertainty about your future, you'll likely recall how those moments, however painful, eventually led to insights or changes in your behavior. Perhaps you studied harder and discovered a new passion. Maybe you learned to communicate better and saved an important friendship. Or you took a leap of faith, tried a new path, and found a calling you love. None of that would have happened without some level of struggle nudging you to adapt. This isn't to say that suffering is always good or that it feels pleasant. It's more about recognizing that pain can be a profound teacher if you're open to learning its lessons. Nietzsche wants us to acknowledge suffering as an integral piece of life's puzzle, sometimes a harsh teacher, but a teacher nonetheless. When you adopt that perspective, you begin to see it as a signpost, a set of clues pointing you toward areas where you can grow, improve, or develop new strengths. So let this set the tone for the rest of what we'll explore. Nietzsche is saying, in essence, don't waste your pain. Instead of letting suffering crush you or fill you with resentment, look at it as raw material, something you can shape into wisdom, courage, or resilience. Of course, this idea challenges us to examine our usual responses to pain. Do we blame others, complain, or numb ourselves with distractions? Or do we listen to what the struggle is trying to tell us and try to transform it into something meaningful? Overcoming difficulties can spark incredible changes, new passions, unexpected friendships, and personal breakthroughs that might never have happened if everything was always easy. And by deliberately choosing to face hardship, you end up proving to yourself that you're stronger and more adaptable than you initially believed. It's in these moments, he would say, that you begin to glimpse your own potential for greatness. You discover what you're truly capable of when comfort is stripped away, and that discovery can shape who you become in ways that might surprise even you. From here on, as we continue this journey through his philosophy, keep this image of suffering as a teacher firmly in mind. We're not going to wallow in misery, and we're not going to glorify pain for its own sake. Instead, we're aiming to understand how embracing hardship, rather than constantly avoiding it, can spur us to realize our potential. The next major piece of Nietzsche's philosophy, and one that has captured a great deal of public imagination, is his concept of the Übermensch, often translated as the Overman or Superman. This isn't the comic book hero leaping tall buildings with a red cape, but rather his vision of an elevated human being who has transcended the limitations of ordinary life. Think of the Übermensch as someone who has broken free from conventional morals and expectations, instead forging a new path guided by their own sense of purpose and creative power. In Nietzsche's mind, the Übermensch embodies the highest potential of humanity, a person who doesn't shy away from suffering, but integrates it into their pursuit of excellence. While the term might sound intimidating, the basic idea is that the Übermensch represents a continual process of self-overcoming, a person who uses obstacles and pain as stepping stones rather than as reasons to give up. This figure is not trapped by the rules society sets or by an internal fear of failure. Instead, they create their own values and continually push the boundaries of what's possible for a human being to achieve. For him, suffering is more than just an unfortunate reality in the life of the Übermensch. It's a powerful catalyst that spurs growth. While ordinary individuals might view adversity as a sign that they've done something wrong, or that life is unfair, the Übermensch sees hardship as a challenge, almost like a gauntlet thrown down by fate. In meeting this challenge head-on, they refine their strengths, develop new skills, and deepen their understanding of themselves and the world around them. This doesn't mean the Übermensch never feels pain or despair. On the contrary, they likely experience these feelings more intensely because they're so engaged with life. But rather than let suffering control them, they harness its energy to go beyond their previous limits. In other words, the Übermensch is someone who has learned to alchemize pain into personal power. By confronting life's trials, they come out on the other side with a more profound sense of self and a clearer vision of the values they want to uphold. It's like a blacksmith forging steel. The metal is subjected to immense heat and hammering, but the end result is something stronger and more resilient than before. In many ways, you can see echoes of the Übermensch in various pop culture heroes, characters who, regardless of whether they know anything about Nietzsche, embody aspects of his philosophy by facing overwhelming challenges and emerging transformed. Think of Bruce Wayne from the Batman franchise. He experiences unimaginable loss as a child, witnessing the murder of his parents. Rather than let that trauma break him, he channels it into becoming a symbol of justice, training himself to the peak of human ability and dedicating his life to protecting others. Although Batman is a fictional creation, the essence of his journey mirrors Nietzsche's ideal. He transforms suffering into purpose. Another example might be Harry Potter, who grows up without his parents and faces constant danger at Hogwarts. He's not a perfect individual, He makes mistakes, feels fear, and endures grief. Yet each setback compels him to dig deeper and fight harder against the evils threatening his world. Over time, those hardships shape him into a leader willing to make sacrifices for what he believes is right. You can also see this theme of rising through adversity in sports stories like the journey of Rocky Balboa in the Rocky films. Rocky's whole story revolves around fighting against the odds, both literal and metaphorical, to prove he can become a champion boxer. His training montages and personal challenges aren't just about boxing, they're about self-transformation, the same kind that underlies Nietzsche's Übermensch. These characters, while fictional, serve as powerful metaphors for what it means to rise above life's trials. They illustrate the principle that greatness often emerges in the furnace of struggle. Importantly, it's not enough to simply endure pain. The key is to use that pain to reshape yourself, to question old assumptions, and to forge new paths forward. That is precisely what the Übermensch does. Far from passively accepting suffering, the Übermensch actively engages with it, seeing it as a puzzle to solve or a resource to tap. This proactive stance contrasts sharply with a more passive approach, where one might just complain about problems or try to escape them through distractions. In modern culture, it's easy to numb discomfort with endless entertainment or to blame society for everything that goes wrong, but those strategies do little to foster inner growth. Nietzsche, by contrast, challenges us to meet hardship with creativity, courage, and a willingness to transform ourselves from the inside out. Another important point is that the Übermensch isn't born fully formed. It's not as if someone simply wakes up one day as this ideal figure. Instead, he envisioned the Übermensch as a potential that exists within humans, one that must be cultivated. That's one of the reasons he spoke passionately about self-overcoming. The process of becoming an Übermensch involves consistently pushing yourself to new heights, questioning hand-me-down beliefs, and refusing to remain stagnant. It's a perpetual evolution, a constant reaffirmation of your own life in the face of everything that might threaten to tear you down. This ties back to the idea that suffering can actually serve as a crucible for personal development. Every time you face a situation that tests your resolve, you have an opportunity to learn something new about your capabilities. You might discover that you're braver than you thought, more resourceful, or more compassionate. Or you might find out where you're lacking and use that knowledge to grow stronger. In either case, suffering becomes less of a dead end and more of a signpost guiding you forward. What's especially important to remember is that he wasn't saying only a handful of chosen people could embody these qualities. Rather, he was issuing a kind of challenge or call to humanity to break free from complacency, from old moral codes that stifle growth, and from the fear of standing out or breaking norms. In his view, each of us has the capacity to aim for something higher than just getting by. If you embrace the mindset of the Übermensch, you see life not as a series of burdens that wear you down, but as an ongoing opportunity to make yourself and your world better. This doesn't guarantee a life free from pain, quite the opposite. It likely means you'll encounter more resistance, because forging your own path often puts you at odds with traditional thinking or expectations. But the reward, Nietzsche insists, is a depth of personal fulfillment and a sense of self-actualization that can't be matched by merely playing it safe. One of the challenges in understanding him is that some people misinterpret the Übermensch as a figure who's arrogant or who exercises power over others in a tyrannical way. That's a misunderstanding. The Übermensch isn't about dominating other people or proving you're superior to them. It's about self-mastery, having such a strong internal compass that outside pressures don't break you. The Übermensch might clash with society, but not because they crave chaos or destruction. Rather, they do so because they are creating new values that may run counter to the accepted norms of the time. This act of creating values often emerges from a deep personal confrontation with suffering and the realization that the existing moral framework offers no adequate resolution. Instead of being trapped by those limitations, the Übermensch invents a new, more life-affirming path. At its core, the Übermensch concept reinforces the main theme we've been discussing. Suffering, if embraced thoughtfully, can be a ladder to something greater. It might be tempting to imagine that a life devoid of pain would be ideal, but Nietzsche saw such a life as shallow and unfulfilled. For him, true greatness emerges in the space where you wrestle with adversity, where you refuse to let disappointment and heartbreak define you. By doing this, you're not just surviving hardship, you're leveraging it for your own evolution. This perspective can dramatically shift the way you respond to challenges in your own life. Instead of thinking, "I wish this never happened to me," you might start asking, "How can I use this experience to become stronger, wiser, and more creative?" The essence of the Übermensch is therefore the power of transformation. Pain and suffering become raw materials, like clay in the hands of a sculptor. It's your commitment to growth that shapes those materials into something meaningful. When you see a person who has endured unimaginable trials, whether it's losing loved ones, battling illness, or surviving a deeply unjust system, and still emerges with a heart capable of love and a mind capable of envisioning a better future, you are seeing the spirit of the Übermensch in action. You are seeing an individual who refuses to be crushed by adversity and who uses that adversity as a stepping stone to a richer, more authentic life. The challenge for each of us is to decide whether we want to continue evading suffering or whether we want to face it head on and let it forge us into someone who embodies this higher ideal. That choice, according to Nietzsche, is a radical one. It demands that we abandon the comforts of complacency and the excuses that come with it. But if we accept the call, we discover a sense of purpose and empowerment that only emerges when we test ourselves against life's hardest moments. Much like the heroes in our favorite books and movies, we learn that adversity doesn't have to be the end of our story. It can be the beginning of a new chapter where we discover just how far we can push the boundaries of what it means to be human. One of the most striking ideas you'll find in Nietzsche's philosophy is the concept of amor fati, which is often translated as love of fate. This isn't just about accepting your life circumstances grudgingly. It's about welcoming everything that happens to you, both the wonderful and the heartbreaking, with an attitude of genuine affirmation. He believed that to fully embrace life, you have to stop fighting against every setback and disappointment. Instead, you open your arms to the totality of your experience, saying, in essence, "Yes, this is my life, and I will love it in its entirety." That can sound daunting, especially when we think about the painful realities we often face. The loss of loved ones, failure in school or work, heartbreak or health struggles. Yet, Nietzsche's daring claim is that it's precisely by loving these difficult chapters that we discover a deeper, more resilient sense of self. By choosing to love our fate rather than merely tolerate it, we begin to see that each challenge can sharpen our character and deepen our understanding of what truly matters to us. When you love your fate, you aren't just gritting your teeth and pushing forward. You're saying yes to the life that made you who you are, thorns and all. To understand why loving our fate can make life so much richer, it helps to think about how most of us react to hardship. Typically, we resist it. When things don't go our way, we complain, feel sorry for ourselves, or try to find someone or something to blame. In doing so, we place ourselves in a state of conflict with reality. Instead of working with the situation we're facing, we waste our energy wishing it weren't happening. Amor fati flips this usual response by inviting us to accept events exactly as they are. But more than mere acceptance, it goes further. It asks us to see the hidden value in every twist and turn of our story. If you reflect honestly on your own life, you may realize that some of your most challenging moments were also the ones that taught you the most important lessons. Maybe failing a crucial exam made you realize you needed better time management or a different career path. Perhaps experiencing heartbreak pushed you to understand yourself better and become more compassionate in future relationships. Amor Fati says, don't just tolerate these events, love them, because they've played a role in shaping the strongest, wisest version of you. When you look at your personal history through this lens, you start to see that even your worst days helped set the stage for new insights, relationships, or directions you'd otherwise never have encountered. But how does one go about embracing fate in a world that often feels uncertain and unfair? The shift begins in your mindset. First, it's crucial to separate acceptance from resignation. Resignation implies giving up, thinking you have no agency or ability to change things. Acceptance, in the sense of Amor Fati, is something completely different. It's the willingness to acknowledge your circumstances fully, without pretending they're different than they are, and then acting in the most constructive way possible. You might say, yes, this situation is difficult, but I can still choose how I respond. By taking ownership of your reaction, by deciding that every event holds a lesson, your attitude shifts from victimhood to empowerment. To illustrate this, imagine you're stuck in traffic on the day of an important interview. The resigned person might boil over with anger, blame the city for bad planning, or give up entirely, convinced they'll miss the opportunity. The person practicing Amor Fati, on the other hand, might think, this is stressful, but what's the best action I can take right now? Maybe I can call ahead, inform them I'll be late, or consider alternative routes. Instead of being paralyzed by the situation, you find a productive way to cope. This approach applies to deeper struggles as well, such as losing a job or going through a painful breakup. By viewing every problem as a lesson, rather than a final verdict on your life, you open the door to personal growth and change. At this point, you might wonder how exactly one can develop the habit of loving their fate, especially when the fate in question involves suffering. A practical first step is to reframe your thoughts about hardship. Instead of saying, why me, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or, how might this experience be guiding me towards something greater? This simple shift in questioning changes your focus from self-pity to self-discovery. Another useful practice is journaling. When you're confronted with adversity, write down what happened and how it made you feel. Then, deliberately look for any positive aspect or potential opportunity that could come out of the situation. It's not about lying to yourself or ignoring real pain. By all means, acknowledge those feelings, but it's about actively seeking something useful within the turmoil. For instance, if you've had a major argument with a friend, you might see it as a chance to develop better communication skills or examine the health of that friendship. If you failed at a project you cared about, you might view that failure as pushing you to acquire new skills or try a different path that suits you better. Another powerful method to cultivate Amor Fati is mindfulness. When you notice yourself sinking into anger or frustration because life isn't going as planned, pause. Take a breath and ask, is there a reason this might be happening? What is this trying to teach me? Mindfulness helps you recognize that your immediate reaction, anger, blame, or sadness, may not be the whole story. Beneath that initial wave of emotion, there could be insights waiting to emerge. You might discover that your disappointment is pointing to an underlying fear or a flawed assumption you've been making. You might also notice that your biggest source of frustration reveals what you care about the most. For example, if you get upset because your creative work gets criticized, it might show you how deeply you value artistic expression and how important it is for you to refine your craft. By taking a mindful look at your emotional responses, you can start rewriting the story you tell yourself about hardship, transitioning from life is unfair to me to life is showing me something important. It's important to note that loving your fate doesn't mean passively accepting every negative condition without seeking change. If you live in an unjust environment, you can still fight for justice. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, you can still walk away. If you're stuck in a harmful habit, you can still break it. What amor fati implies is that you don't hate the reality of where you are at this moment. Instead, you see it as a starting point, a raw material that you can work with to shape a better future. By loving your fate, you remove the layer of bitterness that often accompanies adversity, freeing up energy to actually address problems constructively. You're not weighed down by regret or endless what-if scenarios because you've accepted that, for better or worse, this is the life situation you must navigate right now. And with that acceptance comes clarity, determination, and a refusal to let circumstances define your potential. Ultimately, amor fati serves as a powerful antidote to despair or cynicism. When things go wrong, it's easy to fall into a downward spiral of negativity, questioning the point of trying at all. Nietzsche's philosophy counters that impulse by reminding us that life is inherently unpredictable and sometimes harsh. The question then becomes, how do we respond? If we choose to love whatever comes our way, even while striving to improve or change our conditions, we foster a mindset that sees possibility in every challenge. This is especially relevant in today's world where constant media messages might make us feel helpless or overwhelmed. By embracing amor fati, we start to see ourselves not as passive recipients of fate, but as active participants in our destiny, shaping and reshaping our existence through the way we interpret and engage with our experiences. Imagine you adopt this attitude consistently. Over time, you'd likely notice changes not only in how you deal with setbacks, but in how you approach opportunities. You wouldn't be held back by a fear of failure, because failure itself would be something you love, a chance to refine your path. You might take bigger risks in your career or personal life, knowing that even if things don't work out perfectly, you'll learn something valuable along the way. You might also find yourself being more empathetic to other people's struggles, because once you start loving your own fate, including your hardest moments, you gain a clearer understanding that everyone is wrestling with some burden in life. This empathy can strengthen your relationships and even inspire others to adopt a more constructive outlook. Remember that amor fati is ultimately a choice you make every day. It's not about having some mystical control over fate itself, but about controlling your reaction to fate. You decide whether to greet your trials with hatred, indifference, or love. And in choosing love, you're not only dissolving inner resistance that drains your energy, but you're also harnessing each twist of destiny to mold yourself into a more complete, enlightened version of who you can be. One of Nietzsche's most discussed and sometimes misunderstood ideas is the will to power. At its core, this concept speaks to the basic drive inside each of us to expand, achieve, and surpass our current limits. It's not just about raw ambition or wanting to control others. Instead, it's about a fundamental life force that pushes us to continually grow and transform ourselves. He believed that every living thing has some form of this will, from a plant stretching its roots toward water to a student striving to master a musical instrument. But for humans, this drive can become something extraordinary when we recognize it consciously and use it to reshape our lives, especially in the face of struggle. The will to power, then, is that spark that compels you to keep going, to take on new challenges, and to refuse stagnation. It's the inner flame that doesn't just accept what is, but constantly asks, how can I become more than I was yesterday? It's important to note that Nietzsche's will to power is often oversimplified as a lust for domination. That's not exactly what he meant. While some people might express their will to power by trying to control or harm others, he generally saw the healthiest and most admirable form of this will as a drive towards self-overcoming. It's the force that motivates you to master your weaknesses, confront your fears, and surpass your prior achievements. If you've ever felt the satisfaction of finally nailing a tough piece of music you've practiced for months, or overcoming a physical challenge like running a marathon, you've had a taste of what this concept is all about. It's that exhilarating realization that your potential may be greater than you ever imagined, and that the only way to discover it is through persistent effort and resilience. Rather than seeing power as a means to dominate, Nietzsche encourages us to view it as a route to develop our fullest selves. You might wonder how the will to power ties into the theme of suffering and adversity that has been running through these discussions. The answer is that struggle is the very fuel that keeps the will to power alive. Think about times you've grown the most in your own life. Often those leaps forward happened right after a challenging period, a rough patch in school, a difficult job, or a personal crisis. When things are too easy, there's little motivation to change or evolve. You can coast along in your comfort zone, but when adversity strikes, it awakens a deeper determination inside you. You find yourself compelled to solve problems, confront your limitations, and break through barriers you once thought were unbreakable. Nietzsche's insight is that hardships don't just test you, they can actually catalyze your will to power, prompting you to become someone stronger and more capable than before. You can see this dynamic play out in the stories of countless historical figures. Thomas Edison, for example, tested thousands of different materials before finally inventing a successful light bulb. Each failure could have discouraged him, but instead, it seemed to feed his resolve. This is a perfect illustration of harnessing the will to power. Rather than give up in the face of frustration, Edison used every failure as information for his next attempt, eventually transforming the energy of repeated disappointment into the brilliance of a world-changing invention. Another powerful example is Helen Keller, who lost both her hearing and sight at a very young age. Most would have considered her life path hopeless, yet through immense persistence, driven by a will that refused to accept defeat, she not only learned to communicate, but also became an influential author and advocate. Her incredible determination to overcome obstacles illustrates the same principle. Adversity lit a fire inside her that pushed her to exceed every expectation society had for her. One reason the will to power is so intimately linked with greatness is that it encourages a proactive approach to life's hurdles. When you recognize that part of you wants to push past limitations, you stop viewing obstacles as unfair punishments and start seeing them as opportunities to sharpen your skills or clarify your goals. For instance, if you fail an important exam, you might choose to double down on studying, seek help from a tutor, or reconsider your learning strategies. If you suffer from heartbreak, you might use that pain to learn more about your own needs and boundaries, ultimately forming healthier relationships in the future. By actively engaging with your problems, you're effectively saying, "I refuse to let this define me. I will grow from this." This is the will to power at work, a steadfast commitment to turning adversity into advantage. To put this into practice, it's useful to cultivate habits that keep the will to power alive in your daily life. One such habit is setting short-term and long-term goals that challenge you just enough to make you stretch. If your targets are too easy, you won't awaken that inner drive. If they're too hard, you might become overwhelmed. But find that sweet spot. Maybe it's training for a 5K run if you've never gone that distance before, or learning a new language at a steady pace, and allow yourself to build confidence through each small victory. Another habit is self-reflection. Take regular stock of where you stand in relation to your ambitions and where you're facing resistance. Ask yourself, how can I use this difficulty to fuel my progress? Or, what part of me can grow from this experience? In doing so, you maintain awareness of your forward momentum and avoid drifting aimlessly. It's also important to surround yourself with people and ideas that inspire you to push beyond your comfort zone. Whether that's friends who share your vision, mentors who have already traveled a similar path, or even books and documentaries about individuals who overcame enormous odds. These influences act like kindling for your will to power. They remind you of what's possible when you refuse to let obstacles have the final say. This doesn't mean you won't stumble or feel discouraged. All of us experience moments when we doubt our capabilities. Yet the key is to harness that doubt and frustration, using it as a wake-up call to refine your approach, seek better resources, or develop stronger mental and emotional resilience. Keep in mind that the will to power isn't about never experiencing pain or never making mistakes. It's about using every moment, good or bad, as a stepping stone towards something greater. This is why Nietzsche emphasized the unity between struggle and achievement. If you never face any challenges, you'll never discover how far you can truly go. Think of it like going to the gym. Without resistance, your muscles don't grow. The same holds true for mental, emotional, and spiritual muscles. Adversity becomes the weight you lift, the tension that ultimately leads to new levels of strength and capability. By repeatedly engaging with challenges, you don't just build external success, you also develop an inner toughness and creativity that carry you through life's unpredictability. Ultimately, the will to power is an invitation to see yourself as more powerful than you might initially believe. Rather than being at the mercy of random circumstances, you are an active participant in shaping your destiny. You might not control every external event, but you do control how you respond. By consistently choosing to meet adversity head-on, recognizing it as a spark to ignite your inner drive, rather than as a sentence to helplessness, you channel the essence of Nietzsche's vision. Every time you decide to learn from a setback, to try one more time after you've failed, or to push your limits even when you're tired or afraid, you are living out the will to power. It's not a magical formula that guarantees immediate success, but it does lay the groundwork for continual self-improvement and the possibility of achieving more than you ever thought possible. When you think of the people who've changed the world for the better, be they civil rights leaders, groundbreaking scientists, pioneering artists, or entrepreneurs who reshaped entire industries, a common thread is this unstoppable drive. Their stories prove that greatness isn't reserved for a select few. Rather, it's a potential that exists in anyone who recognizes adversity as the fuel for progress. This realization resonates with what you've already learned about suffering as a teacher and about embracing your fate wholeheartedly. Each concept we've explored ties into a broader message. Life is demanding and unpredictable, but within that very challenge lies the spark of greatness. The will to power is in many ways the engine of that transformation, converting life's inevitable difficulties into a relentless push forward. By tapping into it, you don't just cope with suffering, you redefine it as the force that lifts you to new heights. When we talk about suffering, it's all too easy to focus on how painful and overwhelming it can be. We naturally want to avoid it, minimize it, or remove it altogether. But Friedrich Nietzsche challenges that instinct by framing suffering as a critical test of resilience, an opportunity to gauge and ultimately strengthen your inner fortitude. In his view, the challenges you face are not random punishments but signals that you're stepping into territory where growth is possible. Think of it like a seed in the soil. Only by pushing through the dirt, grappling with darkness, and stretching itself toward the light can it bloom into a plant. You saw suffering as the rich, if sometimes harsh soil that forces you to dig deep and find out just how resilient you really are. This doesn't mean he celebrated misery for misery's sake. Rather, he believed that hardship could be transformed into an ally, reminding you that you're more robust and adaptable than you might imagine. To better understand why Nietzsche placed so much importance on resilience, it helps to consider his broader philosophy. He didn't just accept suffering as inevitable, he embraced it as a powerful catalyst for self-discovery. For him, true resilience wasn't about withstanding adversity without flinching. It was about emerging from difficulty with a stronger sense of self and a clearer perspective on your values. In other words, resilience isn't the same as becoming numb to pain. In fact, it's the opposite. It's allowing yourself to fully experience pain and then using it as fuel to refine your character. Maybe you've come across moments in your own life when you faced a daunting setback, like losing a scholarship or enduring a painful breakup, and discovered that in picking up the pieces, you tapped into reserves of courage and determination you hadn't known you possessed. That revelation, the awareness that you are more capable than you believed, is exactly what Nietzsche wanted us to uncover through the test of suffering. This notion resonates closely with the modern idea known as anti-fragility, a term popularized by author Nassim Nicholas Taleb. While resilient systems are those that can take a hit and return to their original state, anti-fragile systems actually grow stronger and more adaptable when exposed to stressors or uncertainty. Imagine a coffee cup as an example of fragility. If you drop it, it shatters, and no amount of stress can make it better than before. By contrast, our muscles are anti-fragile. When you lift weights or go for a run, you're inflicting stress on your body. If that stress is appropriate and not excessive, your muscles adapt by growing denser, giving you more strength. In a philosophical sense, he viewed the human spirit similarly. He believed we're inherently capable of becoming more powerful, mentally, morally, and spiritually, when we grapple with trials. Each time life knocks us down, we can rebuild ourselves to be a bit tougher, wiser, or more compassionate than before. It's important to note that this transformation doesn't happen automatically. Just as in weightlifting, you need to respond to stress in a way that promotes growth rather than injury. Nietzsche recognized that people can become bitter or cynical when hardships accumulate. The key difference lies in how you interpret and react to life's painful moments. If you curse your circumstances and refuse to learn from them, you might end up more fragile, constantly feeling victimized by the world. But if you approach suffering with the mindset that it can test and refine you, then those challenges become something akin to a training regimen for the soul. Every disappointment, every moment of despair, becomes a spark that can ignite a renewed sense of possibility, provided you choose to see it that way. It's this choice, to interpret suffering as a catalyst rather than as a dead end, that Nietzsche believed separates those who stagnate from those who ascend to new levels of inner strength. At a practical level, cultivating anti-fragility in your life starts with small, deliberate actions that push you out of your comfort zone, much like gradually adding weight to a barbell over time. For instance, consider taking on tasks that are just beyond your current skill set. Maybe you volunteer to lead a group project when you normally prefer staying in the background. Or perhaps you challenge yourself physically by training for a race, even if you've never considered yourself athletic. By exposing yourself to manageable doses of difficulty, you learn to handle stress more effectively and build confidence in your ability to adapt. Over time, these incremental experiences add up, making you more equipped to face bigger obstacles without crumbling. In essence, you're practicing Nietzsche's vision of using suffering, or at least purposeful struggle, as a tool for growth. The more you do it, the more you realize that many limitations exist primarily in your mind, and adversity is sometimes just the nudge you need to break through them. But resilience also involves acknowledging the emotional weight that suffering can bring. He never insisted on denying or repressing feelings like sadness, anger, or disappointment. On the contrary, he believed it was vital to confront those emotions honestly. True resilience means allowing yourself to feel pain, to mourn losses, and to grieve over missed opportunities. Yet it also means not stopping there. After that period of emotional processing, resilience nudges you to ask, What can I learn from this? How can this experience sharpen my self-understanding or clarify my goals? The willingness to explore these questions candidly is what transforms raw hurt into a stepping stone for future growth. Without that willingness, suffering can calcify into resentment or self-pity, which stands in direct opposition to Nietzsche's call for self-overcoming. Moreover, his view of suffering as a test of resilience dovetails with the concept of self-ownership. He frequently wrote about taking responsibility for your own evolution, rather than waiting for external forces to fix your problems. When life strikes you down, no one else can decide how you'll respond. You might look for sympathy, or you might try to blame external events. But ultimately, it's up to you to interpret your hardships in a way that fosters growth. This act of self-interpretation is central to Nietzsche's thought, illustrating how subjective experience and personal accountability weave together. If you consider yourself merely a victim of circumstance, you surrender your power to adversity. However, if you view yourself as an active participant in the narrative, someone capable of turning each setback into a new source of motivation, then you activate that inner resilience he believed was latent in all of us. Another angle to consider is how our cultural environment influences resilience. He famously critiqued societies that prioritize comfort and security above all else. In such environments, people can become overly sheltered, losing the psychological muscles needed to endure and learn from hardship. Think about how modern conveniences sometimes lead us to avoid challenges. We have apps that deliver our meals, cars that do half our driving, and algorithms that feed us endless entertainment. While these innovations make life easier, they can also dull our capacity to deal with the unpredictable. Nietzsche's emphasis on resilience serves as a wake-up call. If we never face tension or conflict, we might forget how resilient we can be. Anti-fragility, growing stronger through pressure, requires some form of pressure to begin with. So, it's often worthwhile to step outside of the bubble of comfort, whether that means traveling to unfamiliar places, picking up a new skill that initially feels daunting, or engaging in thoughtful debates that challenge your perspectives. Some people may worry that emphasizing suffering and resilience implies a grim, masochistic outlook on life, but Nietzsche's stance is more nuanced than that. He doesn't suggest going out of your way to seek pain at every turn. Instead, he points out that suffering is already an inevitable part of the human experience. Given that reality, why not approach adversity in a way that benefits you? Why not use those moments to test and expand your capacities, turning them into catalysts for a stronger, more insightful self? In this sense, his philosophy is less about glorifying pain and more about urging us to see every aspect of life, even the painful parts, as essential ingredients in the grand project of self-discovery. By adopting this mindset, you avoid the trap of seeing life as an endless series of unfortunate events. Instead, each challenge becomes another rung on the ladder of growth, reminding you of the resilience you already hold within. This perspective also dovetails with the broader theme of personal agency running through Nietzsche's work. If you look at your sufferings as random punishments without meaning, you'll likely feel helpless and bitter. But if you choose to interpret them as necessary trials that can guide you toward maturity and understanding, you reclaim your agency. Every setback becomes a prompt to ask, where can I go from here? Or, how can I use this experience to become more capable and self-aware? This reframing shifts the emotional weight of suffering, transforming it from a shackle into a key that can unlock new dimensions of yourself. It's a bold philosophical stance, but one that has resonated with countless readers who have discovered just how empowering it can be to see adversity not as an end, but as a beginning, a chance to craft a narrative of resilience and self-invention. In the end, resilience through suffering, as Nietzsche imagined it, isn't about pretending adversity doesn't hurt. It's about recognizing that pain can serve as a powerful mirror, reflecting your innermost strengths and weaknesses back to you. When you stare into that mirror, you can either turn away in fear or use the reflection to correct course and push onward. Anti-fragility takes that idea a step further, suggesting that each wave of difficulty can make you more adaptable, more perceptive, and more prepared for the next challenge. This is how you evolve, not by living a life free of burdens, but by learning to carry those burdens with an unshakable determination. His message is that inside every moment of hardship lies a test of your resilience, a test that, once passed, lifts you to new levels of self-assurance and capability. Embrace that test, and you transform suffering from a source of defeat into the very crucible that shapes your most powerful self. As we arrive at the final part of this exploration into Friedrich Nietzsche's perspective on suffering, let's step back and gather all the threads we've woven together. If there's one takeaway from everything we've discussed about the necessity of hardship, the power of embracing our fate, and the drive to overcome adversity, it's that suffering isn't the end, but rather the beginning of greatness. He never promised that the path would be smooth or painless. In fact, he insisted it would be anything but. Yet he also believed that these very struggles carry within them the potential for profound transformation. When we confront pain head-on, learning from it, adapting to it, and using it as a springboard, we uncover reservoirs of strength and creativity that remain hidden in comfortable times. We've seen that Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch or Overman is grounded in the idea that human beings thrive by continually surpassing themselves. This vision extends naturally to the principle of amor fati, loving one's fate, which invites us to welcome every twist of life, even the ones that cut the deepest. Meanwhile, the will to power offers a glimpse of that inner drive, compelling us to keep growing, while resilience through suffering underscores how adversity can be the fire that forges an indestructible spirit. In each of these ideas, the message rings clear. True greatness isn't handed to us on a silver platter, but earned in the crucible of our hardest moments. What does that mean for you? Perhaps you've gone through heartbreak, academic failure, or financial hurdles, and you've questioned your own worth. His answer would be that your worth isn't diminished by hardship. It can actually be revealed and enhanced by it, provided you choose to interpret your pain not as a sentence of doom, but as a call to self-overcoming. The greatest achievements in history, be they artistic masterpieces, scientific breakthroughs, or acts of social courage, are so often shaped by adversity. That adversity forces us to innovate, to reassess our assumptions, and to craft new paths forward. By adopting this mindset, you free yourself from the limiting belief that suffering is merely destructive. Instead, you see it as a powerful teacher, a relentless mentor that pushes you to evolve. Nietzsche's framework is not about glamorizing pain for its own sake, it's about recognizing the possibility buried within it. In a way, it's an optimistic philosophy, rooted in the conviction that no setback is truly final unless you allow it to be. Every defeat can be a beginning, every disappointment a signpost, guiding you toward a deeper understanding of what matters most to you. If you remember only one thing from this entire journey through his thought, let it be this: pain does not negate your potential, it can ignite it. Let us close with a line that sums up Nietzsche's faith in our ability to find meaning amid life's turbulence. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Carry that message with you. Let your why be the beacon that illuminates your darkest hours, reminding you that in every trial lies the seed of your own greatness. Have you ever stopped yourself from doing something you love because you were worried about what others might think? Maybe you didn't go to the dance class, or you never started your own YouTube channel, or perhaps you just kept silent during meetings. Think about how much richer your life could be if you weren't held back by the fear of judgment. This is a universal dilemma, and it often goes unaddressed, simmering quietly in our day-to-day choices. In today's video, we're diving deep into why it is crucial to liberate yourself from the weight of others' opinions. The significance of this cannot be overstated, as shedding these concerns not only enhances your self-esteem and personal freedom, but also leads to more genuine relationships and a productive, peaceful life. By the end of this video, you will have acquired a set of practical tools designed to diminish the power of others' opinions over your life decisions, enhancing your sense of freedom. Boost your self-esteem by disconnecting your self-worth from others' validation. Foster resilience and personal growth by embracing challenges without fear of judgment. Achieve mental peace and increase your productivity by prioritizing your own standards over societal expectations. Cultivate authentic relationships that are based not on pretense or appearances, but on real, meaningful interactions. Imagine a life where your choices are dictated by what truly matters to you, not by fleeting opinions or passing judgments. Picture the kind of unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you are living authentically. This isn't just idealistic theory, it's a practical way of life that you can start living today. If you're thinking, well, I sometimes worry about what people think, but it's not that big of a deal. Let me challenge you with this. The moments you give in to external pressures might seem insignificant, but they cumulatively shape how you live your life and perceive yourself. In this video, I will share personal stories, including my own, and philosophical insights that will reveal the profound impact of these seemingly small compromises. To make sure you can apply these insights right away, I'll provide clear, actionable steps that you can incorporate into your daily life. We will explore how historical philosophers and modern-day thinkers address the issue of external validation and how their teachings can be distilled into practical advice for our contemporary lives. Moreover, we will delve into how freeing yourself from the concern of others' opinions can unlock a level of personal productivity and creativity you might have never thought possible. Have you ever held back a creative idea for fear of criticism? Or maybe you've toned down your personality to fit into a particular social or professional box. These are not just compromises, they are missed opportunities for genuine self-expression and fulfillment. What's at stake? Every day that you let the fear of judgment govern your choices, you are missing out on life, real life, not the sanitized version you curate for others' approval. You are missing out on opportunities for true connection, for career advancement, and for personal satisfaction. By addressing and overcoming these fears, you're not just improving your life in the short term, you're setting a foundation for lifelong authenticity and success. So, if you're ready to shake off the shackles of societal expectation and start living a life that's true to your personal vision, then stay tuned. This video will not just inspire you, it will equip you with the knowledge and the tools to transform inspiration into everyday action. As we move forward, I'll also pose some questions and present scenarios for you to consider, which we will resolve together by the end of our discussion. This interactive exploration will not only make our journey together more engaging, but will also help cement these concepts in your life, paving the way for real, impactful change. Freedom from social constraints. Imagine a young artist named Emily, brimming with creative ideas and a unique vision for her artwork. Emily grew up in a small, conservative community where certain styles and expressions were considered the norm, and anything outside of that norm was met with raised eyebrows and sometimes outright disapproval. Over time, Emily started to suppress her artistic impulses, opting instead to produce art that conformed to the community's standards. She received compliments and encouragement for these conformist pieces, but each praise only deepened her sense of inauthenticity. She knew she wasn't being true to her own vision. During a regional art competition, Emily decided to present a piece she thought would meet the conservative tastes of her community judges. However, when she saw other artists, especially one from a distant city, presenting bold and provocative works, something within her stirred. This other artist, named John, showcased a piece that sparked intense debate and didn't win any prizes, but was discussed more than any other entry. After the event, Emily approached John, who spoke passionately about the importance of artistic authenticity and the personal satisfaction it brought him, despite the lack of traditional accolades. This conversation was a turning point for Emily. She realized that the fear of judgment had shackled her creativity, forcing her into a mold that wasn't hers. The realization hit her hard. She was sacrificing her potential to fit into an imposed framework. The real prize, she understood, wasn't the trophy or the public approval, but the internal peace and fulfillment from creating art that was true to her inner vision. From that day, she vowed never to compromise on her creativity for the sake of others' approval. The freedom she felt in making that decision was exhilarating. She felt like she was seeing colors for the first time again. This story echoes the existentialist belief that authenticity is crucial to personal freedom. Existentialists argue that individuals are entirely free and therefore entirely responsible for what they make of themselves. By conforming to societal expectations, individuals deny their own identity and freedom. Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Friedrich Nietzsche have emphasized that living authentically allows one to lead a more meaningful and satisfying life. According to Sartre, bad faith is the term he uses to describe the act of denying one's own freedom and responsibility, essentially deceiving oneself into believing that one does not have the freedom to choose beyond social constraints. So, how can you, like Emily, embrace your personal authenticity and resist societal pressures? Start by identifying areas in your life where you conform to please others or fit in, rather than because it aligns with your values or interests. It could be your choice of career, the way you dress, or even your hobbies. Ask yourself, am I doing this for myself or because it's what's expected of me? Begin to make small changes towards authenticity. Perhaps start a project that reflects your genuine interests, or modify your wardrobe to suit your personal style rather than what's fashionable. Furthermore, learn to recognize and challenge the narratives you tell yourself about why you must conform. These narratives often stem from fear of rejection, fear of failure, or fear of judgment. Counter these fears by affirming your right to make your own choices and accepting that not everyone has to like or agree with those choices. Engage with communities or groups that support individuality and self-expression, which can provide encouragement and reinforce your confidence in your choices. Lastly, practice self-reflection regularly. Reflect on your day or week to identify moments when you felt most authentic and moments you felt trapped by external expectations. Use these reflections to guide your decisions, gradually steering your life towards greater authenticity and personal freedom. By consciously choosing to live authentically, you liberate yourself from the heavy chains of societal expectations. This freedom is not just about making unorthodox choices, it's about making choices that genuinely resonate with who you are. In Emily's case, embracing her true artistic expression not only fulfilled her, but also gradually won acclaim from those who valued originality and authenticity. Like Emily, you have the canvas of your life, and you choose the colors that paint it. Make sure they are the colors you love, not just the ones others love to see. Improved self-esteem. Self-esteem is our internal view of our self-worth. For many, this view is heavily influenced by external validation, the likes, the compliments, the scores on tests, and the applause. But what happens when these external affirmations disappear, or worse, when they turn into criticism? Many people find their self-esteem fluctuating wildly, feeling great when praised and worthless when criticized. This dependence on external validation is like building a house on a shaky foundation. It could collapse at any moment. True self-esteem should be built on a more stable foundation, your own assessment of yourself. Let's consider the story of Alex, a high school student who excelled academically and was a star player on his basketball team. Alex's self-esteem was tightly tied to his achievements and the approval he received from his coaches, teachers, and parents. Each grade less than an A and every missed basketball shot was a huge blow to his self-confidence. This cycle of dependence on external success for self-worth reached a breaking point during his senior year when he faced a series of academic challenges and sports injuries that prevented him from performing at his usual level. The applause dwindled, the accolades ceased, and Alex's self-esteem plummeted. In his quest to regain his confidence, Alex began to see a counselor who introduced him to the concept of intrinsic value, value that one possesses, independent of achievements or failures. This was a pivotal moment for Alex. He realized that his true worth wasn't a tally of his achievements or the sum of others' approval. He understood that his value as a person was constant and didn't diminish because of a bad test score or a missed basketball game. This shift in perspective was liberating for Alex. It allowed him to view life and its challenges through a new lens, one where he could strive to improve and succeed without the crushing fear of failure impacting his self-worth. Stoic philosophy, which dates back to ancient Greece and Rome, provides profound insights into this internal approach to self-esteem. Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus emphasized that we should focus only on the things within our control, our own thoughts and actions, and let go of everything else. According to Stoicism, our internal responses to external events are within our control, and thus we should derive our self-worth from our ability to manage our responses appropriately, not from the events themselves or others' opinions about these events. This philosophy teaches that self-validation is not only more stable than external validation, but also more indicative of true character and integrity. So, how can you build and maintain self-esteem independently of external validation? Here are a few exercises and mental shifts to consider. Journaling. Start a daily or weekly journal. Reflect on your experiences and focus particularly on your responses to them rather than the outcomes. Praise yourself for when you handled situations in alignment with your values, regardless of the external outcome. Setting personal goals. Instead of goals that depend heavily on external validation, like winning a competition, set personal growth goals, like improving your skills or learning something new. This shifts the focus from outcomes to personal development. Affirmations and self-compassion. Practice speaking positively to yourself with affirmations that reinforce your intrinsic worth. Phrases like, "I am valuable just as I am," or "My worth isn't defined by my circumstances," can be powerful. Additionally, practice self-compassion. Understand that failing or making mistakes is a part of being human and does not diminish your worth. Mindfulness and meditation. These practices can help you develop a greater awareness of your internal state and teach you to detach from intense, often irrational emotional reactions to external events. Meditation can be a space to internally reaffirm your self-worth and cultivate peace within. Reframe failures as learning opportunities. View each setback as an opportunity to learn and grow. This perspective not only reduces the fear of failure, but also enriches your journey towards self-improvement. By integrating these practices into your life, you'll find that your self-esteem becomes less about what people think and more about how you see yourself. Like Alex, you can learn to value yourself not by external standards but by your own. This change doesn't happen overnight, but with consistent practice, you'll start to feel a profound shift in how you relate to yourself and the world around you. This self-reliance is the essence of true self-esteem, stable, enduring, and entirely within your control. Personal growth and resilience. Personal growth and resilience are often seen as the fruits of overcoming challenges and adversities. However, the fear of external judgment can significantly deter one from facing these valuable growth opportunities. Imagine living in a world where you are free to experiment, to take risks, and to embrace challenges without the looming fear of criticism or failure. This liberating environment would foster not only innovation but also significant personal development. Yet, the reality for many is far from this ideal. Social fear and the anxiety of not meeting external expectations can lead to a cautious, unfulfilled life where true potential remains untapped. Consider the journey of Sarah, a software developer with a passion for innovation. In her early career, Sarah often held back her ideas during team meetings, fearing that her unconventional proposals might be dismissed or ridiculed. This fear was compounded by a competitive workplace environment and a past experience where her idea had been criticized harshly, leading her to vow never to put herself in such a vulnerable position again. However, everything changed when her company started a new project that aligned perfectly with the unconventional ideas she had been quietly nurturing. Faced with the decision to step forward and contribute her vision or to remain in the background, Sarah found herself at a crossroads. The turning point for Sarah came during an impromptu discussion with a new team leader who emphasized the value of innovation and the importance of pushing boundaries, even if it invited criticism. He shared his own experiences of failures and how those moments were pivotal in achieving subsequent successes. Inspired by this perspective, Sarah decided to step up and lead the project. Her proposals, once a source of personal anxiety, were now instrumental in driving the project forward. This experience brought her a profound realization. Embracing discomfort was not just a necessary evil, but a fundamental enabler of personal and professional growth. The fear of criticism, once a barrier, transformed into a lesson on the importance of resilience and the courage to stand by her ideas. This concept is heavily echoed in the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, particularly his ideas on overcoming and the will to power. Nietzsche advocated for the embrace of challenges as essential to the development of individual strength and integrity. He argued that overcoming difficulties is what forges our character and elevates our capabilities. According to Nietzsche, the path to self-transformation is inevitably filled with obstacles, but it is only by facing and overcoming these obstacles that individuals can truly realize their potential and affirm their existence. Thus, growth is not merely about achieving success, but about how we evolve through the challenges we encounter and overcome. So how can you apply this philosophical insight to cultivate personal growth and resilience? Here are some strategies. Seek challenges deliberately. Instead of shying away from tasks or roles that intimidate you, choose them actively. Look for projects that push your boundaries or areas where you feel you have room to grow. The discomfort you feel will be a sign that you are stretching your current capabilities. Use criticism constructively. Instead of viewing criticism as a negative reflection on your self-worth, see it as valuable feedback that can drive your growth. Learn to sift through feedback critically, discard what is unhelpful, and incorporate what can improve your skills or understanding. Reflect on your experiences. Regular reflection can be transformative. After facing a challenge, take time to reflect on what you learned, how you handled the situation, and how you can apply this knowledge in the future. Reflection turns experience into insight, which is the foundation of personal growth. Embrace a growth mindset. Cultivate a mindset that views skills and abilities as qualities that can be developed, not fixed traits. A growth mindset enables you to view challenges as opportunities to learn, rather than tests to pass or fail. Normalize discomfort. Regularly step outside your comfort zone. This could be through public speaking, taking on leadership roles, or trying new activities that invoke a sense of uncertainty. The more you expose yourself to these situations, the more you desensitize yourself to the anxiety they cause, building your resilience over time. By adopting these practices, you not only enhance your ability to navigate personal and professional challenges, but also prime yourself for continuous growth and self-improvement. Just like Sarah, embracing discomfort and using criticism constructively can significantly expand your horizons, revealing capabilities you might not have realized you possessed. Personal growth is not merely about reaching a destination, but about the journey and the metamorphosis that occurs along the way. Embrace each challenge as an opportunity to forge your path, much like the philosophical teachings of Nietzsche, and watch as your world expands in remarkable ways. Mental peace and productivity. In our relentless pursuit of approval and accolades from others, we often find ourselves caught in a tumultuous cycle of emotional highs and lows. Each piece of feedback or criticism can send us spiraling, disrupting not only our mental peace, but also our ability to remain productive. However, imagine a life where your inner peace and focus are dictated not by the changing tides of others' opinions, but by your own steadfast self-assurance and clarity of purpose. This shift from seeking external validation to fostering internal peace is not just liberating. It significantly enhances your productivity and overall quality of life. Consider the story of Maya, a talented graphic designer known for her innovative work. Early in her career, Maya's sense of worth was tightly linked to the feedback she received. Positive reviews from clients or her supervisor would uplift her for days, whereas any negative feedback plunged her into self-doubt and lethargy, severely affecting her creativity and output. This emotional rollercoaster not only caused her considerable stress, but also made her hesitant to take on challenging projects that could evoke criticism. However, her perspective began to change following a crucial project that did not go as planned. Despite her hard work, the client was not pleased, and the criticism was far harsher than warranted. This incident could have crushed her, but it instead served as a catalyst for a profound transformation. The aftermath of the project led Maya to seek ways to cope with her stress and the instability of her self-esteem. She began exploring mindfulness and meditation, initially as a means to manage her anxiety. Over time, these practices opened her up to the Buddhist teachings on detachment from the ego and the impermanence of external circumstances, including others' opinions. Maya realized that her emotional dependency on external validation was not only a source of pain, but also a significant barrier to her personal and professional growth. This epiphany, that she could choose not to be swayed by the transient opinions of others, changed everything for her. She started to focus more on the process and her personal standards of excellence rather than the outcome, and the reception of her work. This shift not only restored her mental peace, but also led to a remarkable increase in her productivity. Freed from the fears of criticism, she was able to take more creative risks, leading to some of her best work. Buddhist philosophy offers profound insights into the nature of the ego and attachment, which are particularly applicable here. According to Buddhism, much of human suffering is caused by our attachment to transient things and concepts, including the opinions of others. The ego, which is our constructed self-image based on these attachments, is inherently fragile and constantly under threat. Buddhism teaches the practice of detachment, which is not about becoming indifferent or unfeeling, but about relating to experiences and opinions without letting them define us. This concept is captured in the idea of anicca, or impermanence, which asserts that all conditions, whether good or bad, are transient and will pass. Maya's journey reflects these teachings. By learning to detach from the ego-driven responses to external validations, she was able to maintain her inner peace regardless of external circumstances. Her productivity soared as she was no longer paralyzed by the fear of criticism. She was free to innovate and express her creativity without undue stress about how her work would be received. This not only made her more resilient, but also more satisfied and fulfilled in her career. The mental peace that comes from prioritizing internal over external validation cannot be overstated. For Maya, and potentially for many others, understanding and embracing the impermanence of external opinions transformed the way she approached her work and her life. It allowed her to break free from the confines of the ego and the ceaseless search for approval, unlocking levels of creativity and productivity that were previously dampened by fear and doubt. This shift is not merely about changing one's focus, but about a fundamental transformation in how one experiences life and responds to its inevitable ups and downs. The stability and peace that result are not only beneficial for personal well-being, but are also key drivers of sustained productivity and success. Authentic relationships. Relationships built on the shaky ground of pretense and constant accommodation to others' expectations are often superficial and emotionally unsatisfying. While it may seem easier or safer to mold ourselves to fit the perceived desires of others, this often leads to relationships that are not only fragile, but lacking in depth. True connection with others comes from authenticity, from being true to ourselves and allowing our real selves to interact with the real selves of others. This authenticity fosters deeper, more meaningful relationships that are resilient in the face of challenges. Consider the story of Jessica, a college student who always struggled with her social identity. Eager to be liked and accepted, Jessica frequently adapted her interests, opinions, and even her appearance based on whom she was with. This chameleon-like behavior helped her fit in with various groups, but it also left her feeling hollow and exhausted, as if none of her friendships were based on who she truly was. The turning point came during a summer retreat with a diverse group of students who were encouraged to share personal stories and vulnerabilities. Jessica, initially anxious about revealing her true thoughts and interests, was moved by the genuine connections that formed when she finally expressed her real passions, literature, and environmental activism. Jessica's revelation was profound. The people she connected with during the retreat responded with enthusiasm and acceptance when she was genuine about her interests. This experience illuminated a crucial truth, that true friendships are built on the bedrock of authenticity. She realized that her previous approach of altering her persona was not only attracting the wrong kind of relationships, but was also preventing her from forming real connections based on mutual respect and shared genuine interests. This epiphany marked a new beginning for Jessica. She gradually started to engage more authentically with others, which led to deeper and more fulfilling relationships. Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher, offered significant insights into the nature of friendships in his ethical writings, particularly in the Nicomachean Ethics. He categorized friendships into three types: those of utility, pleasure, and virtue. Friendships of utility are based on mutual benefit. One person uses the other for their advantage. Friendships of pleasure are based on the enjoyment derived from the other's company. Most profound, however, are friendships of virtue, where both people admire the other's goodness and help one another strive for moral excellence. These friendships are based on true understanding and appreciation of each other's qualities and are sustained through genuine, honest interactions. Jessica's shift toward authenticity in her relationships aligns with Aristotle's concept of virtuous friendships. These relationships are not maintained through pretense or superficiality, but through the robust foundation of recognizing and valuing the inherent virtues in each other. Such friendships enhance our lives, providing not only comfort and joy, but also moral support and encouragement to grow as individuals. To nurture real relationships and identify superficial ones, consider the following steps. Reflect on your relationships. Assess the quality of your current relationships. Ask yourself which friendships feel genuine and which feel obligatory or superficial. Consider what underlies each type of relationship. Is it mutual benefit, pleasure, or a deeper connection? Be authentic. Start small by sharing your true thoughts and feelings in situations where you might usually conform. Pay attention to how others respond. Over time, try to extend this authenticity to more significant aspects of your life. Choose quality over quantity. It's more fulfilling to have a few genuine relationships than numerous shallow ones. Focus on deepening relationships where you feel mutual respect and genuine connection. Communicate openly and honestly. Authentic relationships require honest communication. This includes expressing your feelings, desires, and concerns openly and listening sincerely to others. Support and encouragement. In virtuous friendships, support and encouragement are vital. Be supportive of your friends' goals and challenges, and seek friends who offer the same in return. By applying these practices, you can transform your relationships from superficial connections based on convenience and pretense to profound bonds that enrich your life. Just like Jessica discovered, embracing authenticity not only enhances your relationships, but also contributes to a fuller, more satisfying life. These real connections foster a support system that can provide both emotional and moral encouragement, helping you to thrive in various aspects of life. As we come to the end of our discussion, let's take a moment to reflect on the transformative insights we've explored today about why not to worry what others think. Each reason we've delved into not only challenges us to rethink our daily interactions, but also encourages us to embrace a life of authenticity and personal freedom. We started with freedom from social constraints, where we saw through Emily's story how liberating yourself from the fear of judgment can unlock your true potential and allow you to express your individuality. Remember, the only person who defines you is you. By embracing who you truly are, you step into a world where your possibilities are not limited by others' narrow perceptions. Next, we discussed improved self-esteem, illustrated by Alex's journey. Alex's realization that his self-worth is inherent and not tied to external achievements is a powerful testament to the importance of building self-esteem from within. This internal foundation of self-worth is your bedrock, and it will stabilize you through life's ups and downs. Practice self-compassion and remind yourself daily that your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. In our third point, cultivating personal growth and resilience, we met Sarah, who discovered that real growth comes from stepping out of your comfort zone and using criticism constructively. Inspired by Nietzsche's philosophy, remember that each challenge is an opportunity to strengthen and assert your capabilities. Actively seek out these growth experiences and watch as they transform you into a more resilient and capable individual. Our fourth discussion on mental peace and productivity brought us to Maya, whose embrace of Buddhist principles of detachment led to significant gains in her creative output and personal peace. This teaches us that by detaching from the need for external validation, you can maintain a tranquil mind and a productive life. Aim to center your peace and productivity within yourself and watch how much more harmoniously you operate. Finally, authentic relationships, as seen in Jessica's life, remind us that genuine connections are formed not through conformity, but through honesty and vulnerability. Strive to cultivate relationships based on mutual respect and shared values, and you'll find that these friendships enrich and support you on a deeper level. As we conclude, I encourage each of you to take these insights into your daily lives, experiment with them, apply them in small, everyday interactions, and gradually expand as you become more comfortable with the practices. The changes you make do not have to be monumental, they just need to be meaningful. Start by choosing one area to focus on, whether it's expressing your authenticity, fostering resilience, or nurturing deeper relationships. You are the architect of your life story. Do not hand the pen to anyone else. Hold it firmly and write a story that is authentically yours, rich in experiences and relationships that truly matter. Embrace the discomfort that comes with growth, for it is the crucible in which the steel of your character is forged.